across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. Welcome. It is Wednesday, the 12th of August. It's Talk Breakfast. Collins in for Kyle. It's midsummer. It's also Eclipse Day or something like that. The sun goes in, the zombies come out, whatever the hell happens. Details to come. Coming up, Andy Burnham has said middle-class families should play their part by accepting asylum seeker accommodation near their homes. What does he mean, firstly, by the middle class? What does he mean by play your part? Why should anyone of any background being forced to comply with a policy born out of government ineptitude? We'll have more on that. Despite all of this, and I find this quite unbelievable, Labour have overtaken Reform in the latest opinion polls. No idea what's going on there. Once again, it provokes those rumours of an early election. What do you seriously think might happen if Andy Burnham goes to the country, as the phrase goes? Also, every police chief in the UK has signed an unprecedented joint letter demanding that Andy Burnham does everything possible to stop the early release of PC Andrew Harper's killers. I'm confused about this story. Are you with me on this, Christian? I mean, I thought yesterday they'd solved it. They weren't coming out early. Also this morning, some civil servants are spending fewer than 2 days a week in the office, despite rules requiring them to be at their desks at least 60% of the time, according to new analysis. I'll tell you what I'd like to hear. If you know somebody that works from home, can you spill the beans on what they really get up to, please, in the day? Because we're told, oh no, they sit at home, it's just like they're at work, but on a sofa. Or are they at the gym? Or are they shopping? Or are they out on some kind of Beano down the local? Thoughts on that? And as I mentioned, the heat wave is back. I think we should do a subject called Your Tips for Staying Cool. We've never been there before, have we? And it clashes, of course, with the eclipse. Do we still have a heat wave if there's an eclipse, by the way? It's like being part of a nature documentary in real time. Apparently, Andy Burnham is going to hold a Cobra meeting to talk about the heat wave. What's he going to do? Drop the temperature? How does this work? He didn't hold one when 230 people came over on a 50-foot boat. No Cobra meeting. It's got a bit hot in here. Cobra meeting. What is going on? Lots to get through. Drop us a voice note on any of that and whatever else you feel strongly about this morning. 0344 499 1000. And you can message 87222. Charlie Rowley has joined us, the former Conservative advisor. I say, you only just joined us, really. I thought, where's he gone? Nice of you to turn up, to be honest, Charlie. You were here very early.
Yes.
And then I'm sitting here and thinking, where's Rowley?
I was waiting for you to bring me on.
What? Where do you go in that sort of short period? Do you go up there? Are you chatting with Chris Evans over there at Virgin? Or
No, he doesn't know who I am, sadly. But
I bumped into Alan Brazil this morning. I haven't seen Al since he only came back. Was it last week? Wasn't it?
Great
After
man.
he had a serious op and decided to lift his T-shirt and show me his scar.
Ooh.
Went, look at that. Now that's a scar. Cheers, Al. He's looking great, by the way. Lots to get through. I touched on this yesterday. I don't want to be some kind of killjoy. I have never got fired up about an eclipse.
No.
It doesn't butter me parsnips. It does. I just don't feel like I know it's oh look, what goes in front of what? The moon goes in front of the sun or something. I don't even know what way round it is. It goes dark for a little bit. Isn't that like yesterday or the day before? I was in the garden and my neighbour called over from yonder, obviously in another postcode, but he called over and said, excuse me, it's going to rain. And I'm sitting there, it's like 30 degrees, and I'm thinking, what do you mean it's going to rain? Because it suddenly got darker and the clouds came out. As it turned out, it didn't rain, but it got darker. Isn't that What an eclipse does.
Generally speaking, I think, yes, when
So what am I expecting? Where is my joy meant to be emanating from?
well, I think you don't often you see as the Earth moves, obviously the sun sets naturally, and so
Yes.
you see a sunrise and a sunset usually, but we don't often see
Patrick Moore joins us in the studio.
we don't often see the moon crossover in front.
I
of
don't know
the
what goes on up there. I don't take a lot of notice, really. I mean, and also, is there a pecking order of the eclipses? Because I'm hearing people go, 1999 was an absolute peach. It's like beauty. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going 2024, mate. It's like, really? I have no memory of any of these things.
Well, I think these eclipses do happen more often than not, but it's the extent to which
They happen more often than not.
I think so, but not in what we're going to see tonight, which should be 91%.
So
of
we
the moon
might get
crossing
a tiny percentage normally and never notice it.
Absolutely,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
That's
That's just stuff moving around in the sky, isn't it?
exactly. That's
Okay.
the solar system doing its thing.
But if I was Peter Jones on Dragon's Den, I always seem to cite Peter Jones, and I said, "Come on, sell me an eclipse. What would you be? How would you be giving it to me?"
well, with full gusto, I hope, if I was in that pitching scenario, and I'd be saying that this doesn't happen very often. You're right. The last time that we did see this sort of full, the total eclipse. I mean, there's that brilliant advert, by the way.
I think it's that brilliant song by Bonnie Tyler. There's that.
That was, yes.
She was ahead of the game.
She was. But do you remember the? I mean, I'm a particular. Is it a biscuit or is it a cake? I mean, that's a whole other debate. But
Yes.
Jaffa cakes.
Yes.
The advert that they had, which was full moon,
Yes.
half moon, total eclipse, when you've eaten the entirety of the Jaffa cake, you shove it in your gob, and it's all got. That is a total eclipse.
Mark's just made a really good point. Eclipse sounds like it should be a chocolate bar, doesn't it?
Yes. Do you fancy an eclipse?
You see, if you were with Peter Jones on Dragon's Den, I've got this new chocolate bar. It's called Eclipse. Straight away they go, oh yeah, meerkat-like. They would pop up and be interested immediately.
They would sit up.
Eclipse.
Yeah, that's nice. No, I'd go for
With
that.
the dark chocolate. Usurps the milk chocolate. Or something like that. I don't know. Something of that nature.
Because it is a sort of an after-dark treat, isn't it, do you think, if you're sitting at home watching, a film or TV
What, an
or
eclipse
something?
bar?
Yeah, you think, have an eclipse.
Now you're talking about it like it exists.
Well, we better put that patent on it before we leave.
I think we should.
can make
Mark's already done
we
it.
can make- yeah.
So what do you do after? Did you go after 8s or Eclipse? I always do after 8s.
Exactly. It's the sort of after 8 is sort of a say nighttime evening snackette. When you're curled up watching something on the sofa. But I'm all for the eclipse. But we don't see this very often, I don't think. So and then the next one, I think I'm right in saying we didn't see something like this since 1999. We'll see it again tonight. I think the next one of this kind, where you see basically the moon cross, is 2090. So that's a long way off.
Wow,
So this
I'll
will
be
the
over
last...
60 by then.
Well,
So here's the thing. Okay, this thing's going to last 2 minutes and 18 seconds. Now, a fella called Bob, I kid you not, who lives down the road from me, was mumbling on about this on a dog walk yesterday, who I bump into every now and again. And Bob was talking about, he couldn't get any of those glasses that you're meant to put some special glasses on or some kind of eye protection. And he said, and he was only being half flippant, that he was considering laser eye surgery. Does he need to bother? Or could he just look at the eclipse? But isn't looking at the eclipse just like looking at the sun now? Isn't it? I mean, there's no greater danger than if you look... Well, there is a danger, but it's the same as looking at the sun any time.
I think so, yeah. And I think it's just...
But less of a problem because there's less sun.
Yes. I think that
So why are we not wearing these glasses all the time? Is my point.
Well, sunglasses are available. I mean, they're usually the...
What is wrong
the
with
protection.
sunglasses? I genuinely don't understand. Why can't you just put sunglasses on?
Because I think this phenomenon will draw you in to looking at the sun, even just for that 2 minutes. And if you're wide-eyed and taking it all in, that is a long time just looking at direct sunlight. We don't usually look at direct sunlight. I mean, usually in the morning, if you sort of draw back the curtains and you sort of catch a glimpse of the sun, you think, oh no, and you sort of
Yes.
you don't look at the sun directly. Even you know, I mean, there was a nice sunrise this morning, I noticed, from this building. Which
There's always, when you look at it in the summer, you look out of here, you're kind of spoiled. You see the sun coming up over the Tower of London. And you think, wow, this is, you know, fairly iconic stuff, a fairly pleasant way to start the day.
Very nice, very nice. But we can't look at it for too long. And that's
So are sunglasses, standard sunglasses, no good? Is that what they're saying?
Well, I just think still, because you're looking directly into the sun and sunlight for a good 2 minutes, even beyond behind the
Why
protection
is a
sunglasses.
newspaper? I mean, the Sun are doing your eclipse tips. They've got a double pager on your eclipse tips. But why is nobody doing cut-out glasses?
Well, I think...
Because you often get those
Do you know, funny enough...
cut-out things. Remember those?
I mean, I remember do I remember correctly, in 1999, I was 9, and I think... weren't newspapers giving away these glasses? Or couldn't you buy like a little, you know, you had them folded up inside the paper like you do a magazine? I'm pretty sure that they were available with the paper.
Yeah, lots of freebies. Free pair of glasses.
Yeah.
3D glasses as well, when they came out.
Yeah. I mean, I remember one being didn't one have to be red and one blue?
Yes,
You know,
I
they
think
were
that's
two-tone...
green.
Green.
Red and green, yeah? In order to get the combo right. The first thing I saw was it Jaws 3 that was in 3D? It was the most horrific film. When I say horrific, I don't mean scary. It was just rubbish. Yeah. It was absolutely shocking. It was terrible. I think it was the one Michael Caine had a role in. Unusual for Caine to appear in a stinker, but this was bad. We sat there in the cinema with these flipping glasses on, and of course there was these then forced shots of a shark coming towards the screen, and the audience are meant to sort of go, "Oh, it's in the cinema." No, it's not. Clearly. Clearly.
Yes. When have you ever seen a green shark?
That's also very true. Yes. The shark was wearing the glasses as well. I think we were in 3D to the shark. It's interesting. So we've got these events of nature today. We've got the heat wave going on, and it's going to get up to, what's the potential, Christians? 30, 38 degrees maybe today.
Good heavens. That's hot.
Good heavens.
I didn't think it was that high, but
Potentially. I don't think that's going to be everywhere. But we've sort of got used to, if you think about it, I mentioned this the other day, Vanessa, one of our makeup team here, she's Australian, and she's been here longer than she lived in Australia. She's been here for about 17 years. And she said she's never seen a summer like this. She loves the sun, not just because she's Australian. She loves the sun. If she can go and lay in the park for the afternoon when she's finished work, she will. She doesn't care about the sun cream. She perpetually tanned, loves the sunshine. And she said this is like an Australian summer.
Oh, wow.
And if you think about it, even on days when, there's literally been no rain, and even on days when it's been, not as hot and it's been kind of okay, it's not really been below about 24, is it, for like 8 weeks or something? I don't ever recall that. No.
Well, it's been very pleasant, I have to say, but it has sometimes got excruciatingly hot, and particularly if you don't have aircon at home, or, even a fan has just been, outside my front door that I've had to say, excuse me, please, turning up at my front door, the only fan that I have.
Really? That's right. Please leave.
Please leave now.
You're making me feel uncomfortable.
But even a fan indoors just just blows the hot air around. It doesn't necessarily.
It feels you get this kind of sort of Pyrrhic victory with the indoor fan. So we've got. I mentioned this the last time we talked about how to stay cool in a heat wave, which provoked all manner of conversations. I bought this years ago, one of those portable air conditioners. You stick the pipe out the window. It looks like you've got an elephant hanging out your bedroom from the outside, or something like that. What's going on up there? So I bought this thing, and it must have been 6, 7 years ago, and it is unbelievable. I would say it's not working quite as good as it was. But you whack this thing out there. So what we've done, because obviously everywhere is hot, is you stick it on in the bedroom, and on a really hot day, if it's the weekend, you can have it on most of the day. It does hoover up the electricity reflected in my bill yesterday, thank you to British Gas. So every now and again, you just dive into, sit on the bed for 10 minutes, and it's just the coolest place ever. So it does sort of work. But what I had noticed, and the guy that cuts my hair said, he was looking up. He showed me a screenshot of an air conditioning unit he looked at in about March, and thought, oh, I remember last summer, not going to get caught like that again. I'll buy it. It was about 225 quid, this thing. Gets to July, he goes back online, 680 quid for the same unit. I mean, it's not like they haven't hiked it by 10%, they've tripled it.
Yeah, they knew it was coming, obviously.
They absolutely did. So I think now, even in the winter, because if you go to any of these websites, they're all sold out. And you do think, well, these are expensive.
Yeah, and you've got a feel for people who are, slightly more vulnerable if you're slightly older.
If you're vulnerable, if you're stuck in a kind of a flat and you haven't got many window options either, then that's tricky. Yeah. That's tricky. And if you're an older person that really can't handle the heat in any respect. However, you'll be glad to know Andy Burnham is calling a COBRA meeting. These are the government's emergency meetings. Forgive me, I can't quite remember what the acronym stands for. Can you?
COBRA?
Yeah.
It stands for Cabinet Office Briefing Room A.
Oh, that was just beautiful, wasn't it? The way Rowley just reeled that off. Cabinet Office Briefing Room A. Have you ever been into Briefing Room A?
I have, yes.
Have you?
We had a lot of meetings there during COVID. That's where we had to galvanise everybody to really,
I thought you weren't allowed to meet during COVID.
The early days. In fact, it was before COVID. It was actually...
Is this a new Partygate scandal you're about to reveal here?
It was for Brexit, no deal preparations, because we thought at times... Because I was based in the Cabinet Office, so we thought departments might not have been prepared as they should have been, and they weren't doing the legwork, and some people and some civil servants I don't think were taking it as seriously, because they just assumed we would get a deal. So we had to prepare the country for a no deal.
And of course you were working, because you were college, you were allowed to work in those situations.
Yes.
You've been in the COBRA meeting room. I've been in the Situation Room. In the White House.
Oh. Well, that's more exciting.
Well, I say I've been in the Situation. So we go on a tour of the White House. So a friend of ours used to work in the White House. She used to work for George Bush. And she got us a West Wing tour in the evening. So that's not open. That's not a place you get a tour in normally. I mean, there are exceptions to it once in a while. So you go around, you go to the Oval Office, there's big armed guards standing out there. You can't go in it. You can just stand and look in it. And similarly, the Situation Room, you can't go in it, but you can have a little look.
Amazing. Amazing.
And she said to, I remember she said to me, she goes, we might see the president. I went, really? She goes, well, yeah, this is literally his office. It was like 7 in the evening. So the funny thing is, when you see the president in his own office, there's still 4 armed guards around him, wherever he walks. You'd get fed up with that after about 3 weeks. You'd think this is cool to start with, isn't this great? Look, they're with me wherever I go. Fast cars. I think there is some fatigue in that after a while.
Yes, the novelty might wear off if you sort of, especially if you want to sort of just go for a nice, a dinner at the end of on a Friday night or something, or just did a nice lunch in the afternoon. You think, oh, I just want to catch up with a friend, and then you've got 4 burly, armed force personnel either side.
They would know
the table behind.
They would know your. Christian just made a point in my ear. He said they would know your toilet habits, wouldn't they?
Oh yes, yeah.
Like, does one of them go? Oh, I'm going to go to the loo now. What you are? No, the president is. I guess 3 o'clock. You can set your watch by it, and off they all trot to the gents. Do they stand outside? I don't know.
Yeah, I think they do. Yes, yeah. I think there's
How much close protection do you get?
Yes, I think you do become quite close in those situations. I think, which is always why it's good to get on. I think with your security team. Otherwise, tails might start to slip out of your personal life.
Indeed, there's two of my favourite security people. I don't know whether you should have idols. There's the Downing Street. I think she's the only female close protection officer with the Prime Minister, and she's been with about the last 4 or 5, and she just looks like one mean son of a gun. That's exactly how I want these people to look, by the way. I don't want fluffiness. And then there's the Sikh guy who looks after the king. You know that guy? He's brilliant, this fella. He's great. He's well ahead of the game. He's got the whole thing stitched up. He must be the kind of numero uno of the right at the top of the protection team. He's the one that says to people, put your camera down, enjoy the moment. He says that to the crowd.
Oh, right.
And it's a great point, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
But you got no pictures of seeing the king.
No.
Where's your pictures? Well, this bloke told me to put my camera down, so I just did. He had a big gun on his waist, so I wasn't going to argue. I've been corrected by Brian in Sheffield. It's fun, you know, when you say something and you just sense what you said isn't quite right. I did have that moment, and Brian has brilliantly corrected me on this. He says, "Oi, Collins, don't diss the Michael Caine Jaws. He was in Jaws 4, The Revenge." Superb film, the only Jaws film I was old enough to see in the cinema. Great show, lads. Jaws 3 was the one that was in 3D, hence the 3, I guess. You know, they timed it well. Yes, you're right. But Jaws, I think I'm right in saying, I'm going to correct Brian now, because I think Jaws 4 was awful. I'm sure it was awful.
I must confess, I've not actually seen
any of the Jaws.
All of the films. I think I've caught the back end of, I think it was Jaws 2 that might have been on.
Right. No, he's watching it at the end. Really?
It's the one where...
By then you've got the picture.
Yeah. It was the one sort of towards the end where they electrocuted the shark. So there were some underground cables,
right,
and then stuffed it in the... But I was petrified after a trip to, very lucky his family went to Disneyland, Florida.
Yeah. And
took part in, I think, the Jaws tour bit, and you got to go in the boat, and it went round, and this shark, sort of this electronic shark, was swimming along the water, and the guy at the front of the boat was laying it on thick and sort of saying, "Oh, just look over there to the side of who was on that island," and there was a family, yoo-hoo, waving away, right. And then of course I couldn't see because I was on the far side of the boat, not sure what that's called, but so I couldn't really see, and I was only, I must have been about 8 or 9, and I remember it vividly. And then, of course, I just sort of, as a small boy, got bored and sort of turned my head to the other side of the boat to look in the water, and the shark, Jaws, was literally in my face. And I was an 8-year-old boy, but
you cry?
But I screamed like an 8-year-old girl.
and he still does.
And still to this day. I drew attention to myself, and I mean, it's petrified me for life. So.
Wow. I can imagine that would be quite a moment. A big old rubber shark coming in, but you don't see it like that, do you? Anyway, the point about the weather, to go back to that, is Andy and the Cobra meeting. Andy Burnham is holding a Cobra meeting. Now, these are sort of, as I understand, in sort of exceptional circumstances of national emergencies or areas of genuine concern. People can die in heat waves, I get that, and it can be really uncomfortable, and the weather is not always kind. But it's just interesting that yesterday we talked about the big super dinghy, the 50-foot dinghy that holds more people than an EasyJet flight to Ibiza. It didn't hold a Cobra meeting for that. And you might think, well, that was the point, wasn't it? That was the tipping point. Even for a lefty, that was the tipping point where they went, actually, this is so serious now, we've better hold a Cobra meeting. Yeah, the tactics have clearly changed by those crossing the channel, so we've got to step up our... And the criteria for a Cobra meeting has clearly changed as well. Well, yes, yeah. I mean, the sun's up, better have a meeting. Yeah, exactly. Really? Yeah. We're going to take a brief pause. We've slightly overshot on the clock. We'll take a brief... Back with more from Charlie Rowley in a moment. 0344 499 1000. Drop us a voice note there as well on a variety of issues. We've got loads going on. Lines are open. 25 past 6. This is Talk. not so small boat crisis. And there's a picture of the boat, and they've got a little wording in a little circle that says picture continued on the back, and they've actually put it's so big they've put it across the front page and the back page of the newspaper. I mean, this is absolutely huge.
It is. By definition it is. And they're getting bigger all the time.
Getting bigger. What's the
not
next
really
one?
sure that you can call it a small boats crisis anymore.
It's a 49-foot dinghy.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, morning. It is Talk Breakfast. It's a Wednesday. It's midweek. It's Heatwave Day. Let's get a voice note. This comes from Angry Rob. Morning, Angry.
Morning, Ed. Morning, Charlie. Rob, on by the work. So, Burnham wants to hold a Cobra meeting. The bloke couldn't hold a knife and fork. Could you imagine how much authority and gravitas he's got when he's surrounded by all these top people? Yeah, I'll tell you what, mate, if it was a war room in Churchill times, I could just imagine it now, mate. Hitler would be laughing his pants off, wouldn't he? Look, he'd just look across the channel at him and go, what a joke. We don't need the Luftwaffe. We don't need a navy. All we need is some dinghies. That's what you should be talking about, you balloon. Dinghies. We've been asking for nearly 30 years, stop the bloody illegal immigration. And what have you done? Nothing. The same as all the others before you. Nothing. You ain't going to be happy until you've destroyed this country, mate. You want to put us right on our asses until there's nothing left to squeeze, and then you're going to go, mission accomplished.
Sorry, could you run that past me again, Rob? That was brilliant. Love the animation and the anger. That is Angry Rob, of course. Did he call Andy Burnham a balloon? I love that.
I wish Rob would just say what he really thinks.
I know.
Come off the fence.
Get off
come
the
on.
fence, Robert. Morning, chaps, says Glenn from Lefty Leeds. A meeting about a heatwave. It's the 12th of August. We've got about 2 weeks left of summer. Another performative gimmick from Burnham. We have, and we do sort of forget this because the weather will at some point, it might be a milder autumn, I don't know, but I'm reminded coming in, even over the last couple of weeks, coming in doing the breakfast show, it's got darker gradually each morning. That's going to soon be I haven't needed to put a coat on in the car, you know, leaving the house and all the rest of it. No one needs it at that time, but you give it a month and the coats will come out.
Yeah.
Give it another month, the gloves and the scarves will be out.
And we'll need another Cobra meeting to see how cold it is.
How cold it is, yes.
Really. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think this is... Look, Cobra meetings should be... And this is why I'm slightly... You know, and people would say this, well, you know, or would accuse me of saying, well, I would say this, wouldn't I? But there is just something that is slightly unnecessary about this. You know, Cobra is supposed to be, you know, as it's the Cobra Cabinet Office briefing rooms, and you've got 2 or 3, there's ABC, I think. If I'm not giving too much detail away.
What happens in the others? Do they ever use the others?
Well, they're just...
There's 2 going on simultaneously.
So I think...
Not such important.
Not such important, or highly secret. You never know. But these are, I'm afraid to say, these are just meeting rooms that just happen to be in the Cabinet Office. But because it just brings together all of different parts of Whitehall and government, it became known as, obviously, when you need the engine room to be doing its bit to cajole and collate everybody. But it's only when there seems to be times of crisis, when you need to pull all agencies together. So whether it's a counter-terrorist attack or whatever, you know, you need, you know, your police force, you need your defence, you need your sort of, you know, health and medical, you know, responses. And but to call a Cobra meeting simply because of the weather, I don't think is necessary.
Well, I don't know what is, you know, if this was something that was going to go on for 3 months.
Yeah.
And it was going to be perpetually 40 degrees, you might say, well, OK, we need to look at how we look after people who are vulnerable. We need to look at, you know, I don't know, issues around farming and all that. You know, I kind of get, we are in a drought as well. So, but as we just said, it's going to be over in a couple of weeks.
Exactly, and that's why I think this is just slightly performative of the new PM to still try and, you know, take that low-hanging fruit and sort of, you know, it's all very well, OK, so getting rid of the 20% VAT on hospitality, for example, which, by the way, was something that Rachel Reeves and Stump put in the first place. So he's just undoing things that they did that were terrible. Now to be sort of seen to be prime ministerial and saying, right, I'm calling a Cobra meeting for the weather. It just, I mean, it's trying to stamp authority and leadership, and I get the optics of that. But when you've got other issues bigger issues to be calling a Cobra
There's
meeting
no
about.
Cobra meeting for the Channel
Exactly.
boats.
Exactly.
I mean, I find that perplexing. I find it insulting. I find it, frankly, outrageous.
Yeah, totally.
That's not a regular thing from the government. Paul says, morning, Ian. Is it Charles or Paul? Oh, morning, Ian and Charles. Charles?
Oh, well, la-di-da.
Were you christened Charles?
I was actually, yes,
Really?
yes, yeah. Is this, who's texted it again? What was that?
HMRC.
Yeah. I'm Lorraine Kelly under
That's right.
this.
He's just playing a role. Pauline Hitchens says, I detest the summer. The only plus side is you don't have to wash down the dogs after a morning walk. Oh, he is so right about that. It's a joy every time I bring the dog back in. I just think I haven't got to go through that. Give it a month or so, and you're washing them down. The kitchen floor is full of paw prints, so you wash the kitchen floor, you wash the dog, and then yourself, your boots are muddy. And I can remember actually at the beginning of this year, do you remember that we went through a period where it rained almost every day? It's easy to forget that. It just seemed like, is it ever going to stop raining?
I don't remember that, no, but, you know, we need the rain now, you're absolutely right, but we need the reservoirs as well.
Margaret in Birmingham says, Andy Burnham holding a Cobra meeting on the heat. That says it all. He has no intention of stopping the boats ever. He's having a laugh at our expense, and his mindset, if you don't like it, tough. What a moron, says Margaret. Fair play to Margaret in Birmingham. Chris D says, so now we have it straight from the horse's mouth. Burnham's answer to the illegal migrants, put them in more affluent areas. He has no interest or intention in stopping these criminals. Well, let's have a little listen to that point that the Prime Minister made just yesterday.
We cannot have a situation where it's only the poorest communities in the country that receive, you know, all of the dispersal of refugees and asylum seekers. I do believe all parts of the country need to work to play their part. It's a challenging issue. We're working at it. We understand people's concerns, and I will look into the issues raised by the good people of Piddington.
Right, you don't understand people's concerns. I'll look into the issues raised of the good people of Piddington. This is an area that's about to have its population tripled or something. I mean, this is it's the most crystallised example of the lunacy of this. By the way, as I have reported on this for the last few years, there are plenty of examples of HMOs opening in all sorts of areas, so there's that for a start. But why is he talking about spreading the misery? Why is he not talking about stopping it altogether?
Yeah.
Because that's the key, isn't it? Now we've got to look at other people playing their part as if this is some sort of national effort that we've all got to do our bit. What are you doing over there? Oh, just open up the third room for an HMO here in Leafy Slough or whatever. Bad example, but you take the point.
Yes, yeah. Well, I must go to Slough just to sort of see how it's going on.
They'd like you there.
But you're absolutely right. This is not about, you know, making sure that all parts of the country can play their part and house, you know, illegal immigrants. It is making sure that you stop the crisis in the first place. So stop the boats coming across, deport people that shouldn't just be here at all. That's how you fix the crisis. But I think he's obviously trying to make a distinguished a point between areas who have been able to probably mount legal challenge and who have rejected and want to reject, vast numbers of people just being moved into HMOs or to hotel accommodation in their areas versus local communities and councils that either might not have the money or they have to use every pound and every penny in council tax to spend on areas of high deprivation. So I think he's trying to make that point, which I think is not particularly successful on anyway. But also, I mean, in areas of high deprivation, so in areas, you know, where there is high unemployment, more poverty, you have more housing available, and housing is cheaper than what it's going to be in more affluent areas. So it is more easy for the government to distribute those migrants or people who need
into areas where it's not going to be as expensive.
And where there is, I mean, we have finite, you know, accommodation in this country anyway, but where there is the housing stock, it will be in those areas. It's not going to be, for example, necessarily in central London or you know, in the southeast, where property prices are high. But it just really, you know, it smacks beggars belief because, as you say, you've got to stop the crisis in the first place, but also moving people. Okay, we don't want them in hotel accommodation either. We just don't want them here. They must be deported. People who are genuinely refugees.
But is that his answer to the problem? We've just got to spread the problem.
Yeah.
We've got to expand the problem so that every area experiences the problem.
Yes, yeah.
And again, I'll say this just for the Ofcom fans out there and those that are on the Christmas card list at Hope Not Hate. You would say this about any cohort of young men being shoved into a house near you. If you suddenly realise that in your nice leafy road, and I don't care whether it's a council estate road or a private estate road, regardless, if suddenly somebody said, oh, that house at the end that old Madge Miggins used to live in until she sadly passed away back in July, then in that house there, we're going to turn it into 8 bedrooms, and there's going to be 8 23-year-old young men. I don't care whether they're black, white or brown. I think anyone in that neck of the woods would go, that's a bit weird. They don't really speak any English, and they're just going to live. They've got no jobs, so they're going to be quite bored a lot of the time, and we're just going to put them in this road. That would be unacceptable, whoever it is.
Absolutely, and they won't have a settled status. They won't have, they will simply be, they will arrive, they will be documented, you'd hope, through the Home Office, and then they will be put there to still determine an outcome of their case.
Yeah.
And if they are ultimately then rejected, when the Home Office get to the bottom of it and think, actually, no, right, you need to be deported because you're not fleeing persecution, or as you say, you're 23, but you claim to be, 17, 18.
Yep.
But you've got a beard longer than mine, and an Adam's apple, and you've got to be deported. Well, they will then challenge that in the courts, and that can take another year before because of because of HMRC, because of the ECHR rules and human rights abuses and all the rest of it. So these people will be there for a long time in your street, in your community, whereas you say they don't necessarily speak English, they haven't got a job to go to, they will be bored, and they wouldn't necessarily have integrated within your particular village or your way of life, and that will just create tension, and as it would for anybody, as you say.
100%. We pause momentarily, only to return in a couple of moments with Charlie Rowley, former Conservative Special Advisor. Lots to talk about, whether it's heatwaves, Cobra meetings, HMOs coming to a place near you anytime soon, because the PM says we should spread the joy, really. That, and in addition to all of that, we might get into working from home in a moment, because the civil service have got a PhD in this kind of claptrap. So we'll come on to that in a couple of moments' time. Coming up on 20 to 7, let's get a voice note from Kevin. Kevin, morning.
Morning, Ian. Kevin in Sheffield. Andy Burnham's so-called solution to the migrant crisis is to spread more of them around the country. How crazy is this? How nuts is this? I can't believe that anybody voted for this. If you truly believe that all refugees are welcome, then the country is going to sink, if it's not already sinking now.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk, yeah. Welcome back. Just gone 20 to 7. Loads to get through this evening. Ashton says, I personally think people who are affected by solar farms should have the right to priority access at a subsidised rate, especially when it impacts their access to local green spaces, which are replaced with solar farms. Was that from a previous show, that one, Christian? I don't know. It was sent in 8 hours ago, so I think it might have been. Because I'm not sure what it refers to. It might have just got left up there. Because Joanna says people who live near wind farms should get cheaper energy. So there must have been a debate last night on that.
Yes, I think if I'm not mistaken, there might be a story yesterday where isn't there something to do with the national grid? It's going to cost sort of £1 billion or something because the grid can't cope with all this electricity, and so they're going to have to switch off the wind farms, which I think which is also generating electricity. It's all becoming a bit too much.
Yeah.
But there we are.
Ian says Eclipse is the last track on Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon album. If all the physical copies ever sold were placed end to end, it would reach over the Atlantic.
Well, now we know. Pub quiz question for you.
I have no doubt that it's one of the fastest, greatest selling albums ever. Never really into Floyd in any great way.
Who?
Pink Floyd. You might have heard of them.
Before. I have heard of Pink Floyd, yes.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Ian and Charlie, I wonder if the Cobra meeting will discuss fannage, says Cliff. Yes. A few people pick up on... we talked about the lack of fannage, or for some people it's air conditioning, but, you know, fannage is which does sound like a village in Cornwall. Oh, we're off to fannage for a fortnight. We love it down there.
Yes, yeah.
The views are spectacular. One in from Mick, who says, Ian and Charlie, for Pete's sake, can someone tell Burnham and his ilk it's summer? I think there's more pressing issues facing the country worthy of a Cobra meeting. Yeah, you might think so.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, we know how to moan about the weather as a country, but we also are pretty good at looking after ourselves and don't need a Cobra meeting from the top down to tell us to maybe stay out of the sun if it's too much for you, drink a bit more water.
On balance, do you like it this hot?
I don't.
Double entendre Wednesday again. Comes around rather quickly, doesn't it? I only say this because, you know, that is the debate that, you know, we have as Brits. Oh, it's so hot, and then it's the winter, it's so cold. And I like the idea that you can wake up, stick a pair of shorts and a T-shirt on and just go for a dog walk or just mooch around the place. And there's something like yesterday, it was quite nice. So we took the kids out, did a bit of bowling, went for a takeaway afterwards, came back, the back garden was open, the kids were playing with some of their mates and the dog was out. It was just that, I thought, this is summer. This is like you're meant to be doing this. And I don't want to, at that point, but the weather was kind of okay. It was about 25 at that point, and it was starting to cool a little bit. It was okay. When you start to get to 35, then you are in different territory.
Yes, yeah, and I just think if the hotter it gets, it stops you doing things that you want to be doing over the summer as well.
Yeah.
So, and that could be just you going to the gym. I mean, I might have been once or twice, sort of trying to go back to. But
yes.
it stops you. You know, people that have to wear, you know, like your good self this morning. You know, wearing a suit on the way to work, and then being in a stuffy office, or even if you pop out for lunch.
It's when you get on
hot.
It's not so bad when I finish doing this show for Jeremy. It's not so bad because you get back on a train and the trains going that way out of London are pretty much, there's one, if any, people on the carriage that I'm sitting in. It's usually air-conned. When I'm doing afternoons and I get on a train at about 4:15, it's packed. And sometimes there is no aircon, and that's when you find you obviously you take your suit jacket off, you undo some buttons. You don't. Sometimes I take everything off. Who's that man with the boxers on in the corner? But there are people you could say, people sort of using newspaper as a fan and all that kind of thing.
And everybody just is a bit more irritable, I think, as well, because it's hot and it's, you know, everyone's a bit bothered.
Yeah.
And I also, I mean, I love going to the theatre, but I wouldn't want to go to the theatre in this heat.
How many of them are air-conned?
I don't think that many. I think because they're still pretty, you know, pretty historic buildings and...
Yeah, those old Victorian theatres. We've got loads of them. The Victoria Palace Theatre is an oldie and a bit of a favourite of mine.
Yeah.
I can't imagine they've got the... You know, the Dyson tubes running through that place. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they have. Let's get a voice note. We talked about 3D glasses because we were talking about eclipse glasses and it moved on to 3D glasses. Here's a voice note from Carl. Morning, Carl.
Hi, Ian, Carl in Bury. You really upset me now and brought back some bad memories. Jaws 3D. All them films that came out with 3D when I was a kid, I was around about 10 or 12-year-old, and all my mates were going on about 3D films and how fantastic they were. Oh, and everybody were loving it. They're all going to the cinema together, all the mates. And then there's me, colourblind in red and green. So I couldn't put a pair of 3D glasses on because it did absolutely nothing for me whatsoever.
That's a good point. If you're colourblind, it's red and green that are the issues, isn't it? If it's any consolation, Carl, all of those films were rubbish. I mean, you didn't miss anything. I tell you really didn't miss anything at all. These sort of forced scenes that were filmed in order to kind of show a moment where something's poking out of the screen. You know, somebody prodding a stick somewhere, you know, they'd overplay the stick moment because you're meant to go, wow, look, it's actually coming out the screen. I don't want to sit in a cinema with a pair of paper spectacles on.
No, and they also were a bit naff and didn't really work anyway, so...
Although the Ninjago ride at Legoland does rather come into itself with a pair of those 3D specs on.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, they're plastic now, you know, they look a bit more meaningful. But the old paper ones, with sort of a cellophane-y kind of lenses or whatever the hell they were.
Yes, yeah. I've not been to Legoland for a long time.
I went there last Friday. Oh. Yes, I was absolutely rinsed. I mean, financially. It is unbelievable. I tell you what, just one quick story on that. So obviously you pay to go in, and that costs enough. We only had, because I was working, by the time I got home, got ready, we only had half a day to explore the place. Now, we've been before. You need more than 4 hours to get, even if you pick your ride. So we know enough of the rides and we want to go on the Mythica ride. That's a sort of big one, and that's really good. And of course, there's big queues for these things, and it's the height of summer. So you buy the upgraded passes, which can cost the fast track passes, which can cost anything from, I think it's about 30 quid a person to 120 a person, which will get you all the rides. And we went for the middle one, which I think was about 50 quid. So I'm there with I got my 2 boys and one of their mates as well. So you're kind of paying for another kid on top of that. And then there's stuff you pay for while you're in there, even if you take your own food, which they ate in the car journey there. So when we got there, they were hungry. So we go into this burger place, and it's, you know, one of them, it's sort of half-themed. Go into a burger place. I order a hot dog and chips. 2 of the boys had chicken tenders and chips. You get 3 strips of chicken. And my little one had some 4 cheese balls and chips. And you get a drink with it. £59
Wow.
for that. Now, I think I'm an arch capitalist, all right? It's the best system we have. It's not perfect. It's great. Make your money where you can. Fantastic. If people don't want it, they won't buy it, and you won't make the money. So the basic principle of it. But we've all got a line when you go, you are taking the piddle, mate.
Yeah, yeah.
£59. The other thing that slightly perturbed me, and I stand to be corrected, Legoland, if you're listening, but when we ordered the drinks that go with it, you could say they all want a Coke or a Fanta or whatever. You can only get a large one. Now, you know, there's a lot of health advice around kids and sugary drinks and all the rest of it. So you get this massive drink that you can't even finish as an adult, and they're only selling large ones. I mean, it's a kid's place, right? This is a place where kids go. Do you really want to be the company associated with only selling a gallon of Coca-Cola to children?
No,
Again, I stand. If I misread the screen, That drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Can you use the screens?
Yeah.
There's always something not on the screen that you want, isn't there? Or a combination of something. Oh, they don't do that. Yeah, you can't get that.
Because you want them to, any organisation, you'd want them to be somewhere that wants you to come back to. And, if that leaves a bit of a dampener on the day because of the cost
I
of
just
everything,
thought it was, you're spending enough anyway, and I just thought that is flipping outrageous. It is outrageous. Mark just made a really good point. You're meant to get a paper receipt, aren't you? For some reason, am I the only person that it crops up? Please remember your number because the paper's run out.
Yes.
I actually took a picture of it. I thought, I'm not being conned like that.
Yeah.
Standing there forever, disputing whether or not I've actually paid for my £59 meal of takeaway fried stuff.
Yeah.
59 quid.
It's a lot of money, And I thought the government was supposed to be helping over the summer. I mean, I don't know whether that kicked in as well. But
if I was unemployed and on certain benefits, I could have probably done the whole trip for about £2 because they did this subsidised thing. But you're not going to get any change out of, and you sort of wonder how so many people are able to do it. You're not going to get any change out of 300 quid.
It's a lot of money.
And this was half-day trip. So the reason for the fast passes was because we had to be quicker than normal. Still didn't get... We left in the end mid-queue of one ride because the kids wanted to go to the Lego shop because there's another way that you'll spend a lot of money. They want to go to the Lego shop afterwards.
Yeah, they know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing, and that shuts at 6 o'clock. So it's to do any of that stuff, any of the big parks, is an expensive day out. Whatever way you slice it, however much you earn, it's an expensive day out.
That's why you could probably just more often than not find me at home, curled up on the sofa, eating a bar of Eclipse.
Yeah. That's the way around it, really, isn't it? Just don't bother. This comes from Steve in Yorkshire, who says, me and her went to the Theatre Royal in Brighton a few years back, and the heat was unbearable. I'll never go again to such an old building. Obviously no air conditioning, although loved the show. Dirty Dancing.
Oh, yes, a classic. But you're right, just in the peak summer months, it just puts people off doing all the kinds of great things. And you've got to feel, I would be sitting there watching, if I was there watching Dirty Dancing, I'd be thinking, my God, these actors and brilliant professionals.
Yeah, how hot are they?
They must be absolutely sweat. Exactly.
Because they've got all the lights on them. And they're in an even more enclosed space.
Yeah.
And they're dancing like Billio.
Yeah. Credit to them.
For about 2 hours.
Yeah.
2-3 hours.
Amazing.
This from Terry in Slough says, lover or hater, Mrs Thatcher would have stopped those small boats invading our country. Unfortunately, in my opinion, we've got a government that seems to care more about the welfare of asylum seekers and illegal immigrants than about the British people. And it's very hard to disagree with what Terry's just said there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That statement, that's one of the worst things I think I've heard Burnham say. He's only been there half an hour, when he says, everybody's got to play their part here. Really? Nobody should be playing their part in this ruse.
Totally. It should be about stopping them in the first place, and people that come into the country, they should be deported. But the reason why, and I failed to make this point earlier on, is that we haven't got the deterrent in this country, and it should have been, through Miranda, that should be a deterrent. There's no problem, in my view, of having a bit of patrol across the channel if that's needed. But when he now says middle-class families, and so now affluent areas, brackets, should be taking on these migrants, that is just going to appeal to people. They're going to think, well, hey, right, not only do we get to go into the UK and we get to be able to have our £50 a week that we can get all the luxuries that, and the benefits that Britain provides over above every other country. That's why they don't want to stay in France. They want to come to the UK for our benefits. But now we could be, quids in, we could be put up in sunny, Seven Oaks, for example.
That's very true.
It will be more of a draw factor for people to think, great, the UK are giving us everything.
Steve in Cambridge says, what would Charlie know about Fanage? And he's just saying, you've not been there.
I haven't been to Fanage.
And has his hairdresser been arrested yet? Very cruel.
That's the last time I go to Cambridge. I mean, their education system has gone downhill.
I was about to say, yes. You're not missing much. Yeah, I thought your hair always looks rather good, actually.
Thank you very much, Ian. No, that's very kind of you to say.
And you haven't got any grey bits either.
Well, I'm avoiding looking at my hair too much now because just in case one or two appear at the sides. But I did have a haircut about. I got this done a couple of days ago actually.
Did you?
So it's still.
It looks rather good. I had side grey bits. I was about 34, I think, when they first appeared, and nothing happened for about 10 years. They just stayed like that, and I thought this is all right. And then suddenly, bang! I've now got a little more.
You haven't, have you? They're barely noticeable from this side of the desk.
When I was younger, you'd change your hair colour, not to cover up the grey, by the way, because you quite liked changing it. I went through all of that a little bit, but I've never thought of covering up the grey, because can you imagine how weird it would be if I walked into work now with a block of brown hair?
Well,
I wouldn't get away with it, would I?
Give it a go.
You watch a lot of TV shows. It's like a lot of male presenters. It's clearly the same packet. It's the same. They've all got the same. Jonathan Ross, Rob Brydon have all got the same coloured hair. Is there a job lot going over there somewhere? Charlie, we're out of time. Can you believe it?
Until next time.
Until next time. That was Charlie Rowley. Loads more to come. 0344 499 1000.
We've been on the beaches for 2 days running. Both days we've been hassled by the local French police. They've turned up armed to the teeth, looking very aggressive. We've had to arm ourselves, actually, with gas masks. They're checking our ID, wanting to know what we're doing here. They should show as much enthusiasm, I think, with the migrants. They seem to be waving them through and hassling us. But this morning, they asked for my ID. I told them to clear off. I said, you got it yesterday. You're not hassling me on the beach on my morning stroll.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
The entire city is being overwhelmed, and there are people who bear direct responsibility. Those responsible are the national government, led by Pedro Sanchez and his ministers, as well as Mr. Marlaska, and of course, the European institutions, which have completely failed in what's supposed to be the European Union's external border.
Which country in Europe wipes everybody else's backside but its own people? Here.
Well, Morocco, of course, is hosting the next World Cup. I mean, are we suggesting that...
Oh, don't start me on the World Cup. We'll get
the country that is hosting the next World Cup is too unsafe. It's so unsafe.
Oh, great point.
People have to cross continents to come to Europe. And, of course, I have seen personally examples of this. People come from Morocco into Spain, across to the mainland, up France, through the south of France, up to the north of France, where they reach Calais and then eventually come to the UK.
It is a cause for concern, and we are making contact with the Spanish government, the Spanish authorities, to provide support, but also to understand the implications of that situation.
Some of you might remember a poster I put out 10 years ago called Breaking Point, where I showed vast numbers illegally breaking into the European Union. I made the point that if we vote for Brexit, we'll have the power to stop those people coming here. Sadly, the Tories failed us, Labour have failed us. Believe me, unless we get a reform government, those scenes you're seeing in Spain today, many of those young men, lots of them dangerous, will be heading towards Calais and coming to our country too. It is time to wake up. This is a battle for the future of our civilization. I can't put it any more plainly than that.
When you look at what happened to Spain, they don't know what to do. And it's happening again today. They're coming in by the tens of thousands. They're just invading the country. And what that is weak law, bad management, but very liberal law. They passed a couple of laws, and people read. You know, people are smart. They read from other countries, and they swam that 3-mile sweat law, however they got in, but nobody's seen anything like it. That will look good compared to what's going to happen to the United States. The biggest thing, the worst thing that Biden did is allowing 25 million people into our country.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You're absolutely bang on. It is the home of common sense. Good morning. It's Wednesday, 12th of August. Welcome to Talk Breakfast. Collins in for Kyle. It is midsummer. It's also Eclipse Day, something like that. The sun goes in, the zombies come out. Whatever else happens, we'll discuss more of that in a couple of moments' time. Coming up, Andy Burnham has said that middle-class families should play their part by accepting asylum seeker accommodation near their homes. What does he mean, by the way, by middle class? What does he mean by playing your part? Why should anyone, regardless of your background or alleged class status, be forced to comply with a policy born out of government ineptitude? It beggars belief. We'll have more on that. Despite all of this, and if you want to be taken to a point of absolute raging anger this morning, have a listen to this. Labour are massively ahead in the polls. Well, in context, that is. They've overtaken Reform in the last opinion poll. No idea what's going on there. Once again, provokes those rumours of an early election. What do you seriously think might happen if Andy Burnham does go to the country, as the phrase goes? Will he be back in at number 10, or will somebody nab those keys from him? Also, every police chief in the UK has signed an unprecedented joint letter demanding that Andy Burnham do everything possible to stop the early release of PC Andrew Harper's Killers. I'm slightly confused by this because yesterday we heard that they had stopped the early release of Andrew Harper's Killers. At the moment, though, the pressure is still on from the police. Also, some civil servants are still spending fewer than 2 days a week in the office. This is despite a rule that requires them to be at their desks at least 60% of the time, according to new analysis. Tell me this, if you know somebody who perpetually works from home, and I'm sure there are diligent people who do a proper 8-hour day just from home. They do exist, but what do they get up to? Your mate that's not in the office, is he really working from home or doing something else? I reckon some people have got a second job. I genuinely would not be surprised. And as we mentioned, the heat wave is back. Your tips for staying cool are always welcome, but it clashes with the eclipse. Do we still have a heat wave, by the way, if there's an eclipse? Surely there's at least 2 minutes and 18 seconds when there is no heat wave. It's like we're being part of a nature documentary in real time. Andy Burnham is holding a Cobra meeting to discuss the weather. He didn't hold one when a 50-foot boat came over with 230 people on it, but he's holding one because it's a bit hot. You can't make this old guff up, can you? We'll bring you everything you need to know. We'll bring you all the breaking news. If you want to get in touch, you can call us on this number and you can voice note us on any of the above. 0344 499 1000. Let's get a word with Nigel Evans, former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons. Morning to you, Nigel. And he joins I thought the Terminator had shown up. With, I was trying to work out, are you wearing are they 3D glasses or are they eclipse glasses?
No, they're eclipse glasses. And it's a very serious point, even though you look a prat. You are going to protect your eyes. So, yeah, wear the glasses.
Where did you get them from? Because these things are like gold at the moment.
Yeah, it's a mate of mine, got a dozen of them. He, got them months ago when he knew the eclipse was coming. Yeah. And, quite predictably, you're right, it's going to be difficult to get them now. But nonetheless, if you are going to look at the eclipse, then you should have some eye protection.
Can you not just wear sunglasses? I mean, I'm asking you like you're an eclipse expert.
Right.
Well,
you're an expert. Well, I am. For the purpose of this interview, I am.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you wear these, you literally, and I've got some bright lights on my face, I can only barely see the bright lights. I can't see anything else. These glasses are perfect for politicians because they then can wear them and not see anything. They cannot see the boats coming in. They cannot see the unemployment that they've created. They cannot see the civil servants who are not in work they're working from home. So these are perfect for politicians.
Well, some of them must have a contact lens version because they can't see any of that stuff anyway. Without the glasses. You're absolutely right. Are you fired up by the eclipse, Nigel? Is this something that you think, I can't wait for this? Because I don't know, I'm not being a killjoy here, but I'm not really on board with it.
Yeah, no, I am. And there's a few of us going to go with a bottle of champagne up on an area that we will be able to see it because I'm in the south. I'm in the middle of France, a few hours south of Paris. And so we're going to get, I think it's about a 95% eclipse this evening. I have seen one before. I was in Kourou once in French Guiana. And it was early in the morning. And I remember the one thing, Ian, that all the birds, as the eclipse was about to begin, started to land. And it was almost as if, their brains were telling them that it's time to go to sleep. It was quite remarkable. And then as soon as the eclipse finished, the birds took off again. So it was quite a remarkable natural event. But they don't happen all that often, and that's why it's so special.
Well, I like the idea that you've turned it with some mates into a drinking event as well. That sort of slightly fires up my interest, maybe a little bit more. But
well, it's going to take my mind off the Cobra meeting, Ian. I am so fired up by this Cobra meeting.
I mean, seriously, what's going on? Andy Burnham needs a Cobra meeting for the weather. Doesn't need one for the illegal boats, particularly that big one that arrived yesterday, the size of an EasyJet plane. Doesn't need a Cobra meeting for that. Doesn't need a Cobra meeting for all the other things that have gone wrong, but he does for the sunshine.
Yeah, that's right. We had the equivalent of a Boeing 787 come on our shore with 230 people, and yet the Prime Minister doesn't believe that merits having a Cobra meeting to be able to stop the boats, which is what we were told was going to happen in 2024 when Keir Starmer promised that he was going to break the people smuggler model. And that just simply has not happened. But we can have one about the weather, over which he has absolutely no control. But I did look back, Ian, to 1976, when the last time we had one of these amazing spells of great weather, as I'll call it. Of course, the government of the day appointed Dennis Howell, the Minister for Drought.
Wow.
And within days, it started raining. So then he became the Minister for Floods. I mean, you couldn't make this up. But I'm expecting a policy announcement from Andy Burnham following the Cobra meeting, and it's going to be a free mivvy in every household. A free mivvy. Because that is going to help to cool the population down and will cost next to nothing. Because, that's the sort of thing, the policy announcements that we've had over the past 2 and a bit weeks, it's called performative, and it is literally window dressing, not really tackling the real problems that people are talking about. But maybe we'll get another TikTok with Andy wearing his T-shirt and shorts and telling everybody all the things that they ought to be doing, and clearly having a free mivvy in every household is going to be part of the package.
I think you're absolutely right, and it doesn't sort of take much for a photo op. I reckon we'll also see Andy Burnham in his lunar glasses as well. A picture of him and the missus in the Downing Street garden or wherever it is. He doesn't like Downing Street, does he? Has he ever been there?
Well, not often, but what we do know is it's costing considerable sums of money to ferry civil servants and other people up to Manchester for his 1 day a week photo op in the number 10 in the north. And of course, he's doing his tour around Britain at the moment as well. Can you imagine that you're there with your bucket and spade on the beach and all of a sudden you see the Prime Minister coming towards you? It's going to really spoil your fortnight off, isn't it?
It really would. Well, areas that he should be getting Cobra meetings going for, he doesn't. One of those, the obvious one, are the small boats. Now the big boats crossing the channel. And of course, the amount of people that come into our country and then get thrown into hotels and more increasingly popular HMOs, homes of multiple occupancy. Let's have a listen here, Nigel, on this very subject about where the hell you put thousands of people. Andy Burnham has a new idea.
We cannot have a situation where it's only the poorest communities in the country that receive, all of the dispersal of refugees and asylum seekers. I do believe all parts of the country need to work to play their part. It's a challenging issue. We're working at it. We understand people's concerns, and I will look into the issues raised by the good people of Piddington.
So, two things here, Nigel, just before we gauge your view on this. Firstly, he's talking about the good people of Piddington, which is where a population of about 600-700 is going to increase by an additional 1,200 or something, as a whole load of migrants are moved in right on the doorstep there. So that in itself, I mean, at what point would the local authority or somebody would go, sorry, mate, that just can't happen. That is ridiculous by any means. You could be a Marxist, you could work for a refugee charity, and you would argue against that happening. It's stupid. So there's that. But the wider point, he's making this sound like we're all part of a national effort here. We all got to do our bit, some sort of post-war kind of community responsibility. I mean, why do we have to play our part to prop up government ineptitude?
No, absolutely spot on. What we want is the government to do its part. We shouldn't have to be told that areas which normally would not attract illegal immigrants coming in or be placed there, for obvious reasons, where many of these rural areas, for instance, have absolutely no facilities whatsoever. You give the example of Piddington in Oxfordshire, where there's a population of 400, and you're talking about trebling that population overnight. It's even forced the people of Piddington to have their own little mini referendum in order to secede from the United Kingdom, because they're so fed up that the government is not taking responsibility for what they should be doing. And part of the problem is that the Prime Minister is looking at the problem that's been created by government inactivity over many years. So instead of tackling the core issue, which is stopping the boats, they are now tackling the issue of what to do with the people that are coming in ever-increasing numbers. We've got Andy doing interview after interview telling us and reassuring us that the number of boats are going down. Well, my goodness me, I'm not surprised, because the boats are getting bigger and bigger. The real problem is that since he's become Prime Minister, over 3,000 illegal immigrants have now entered the United Kingdom, costing the British taxpayer, alarm clock Britain, millions and millions of pounds. And so they need to tackle the real problem. Instead of telling the middle classes in rural areas that you've got to take some of the illegals because we can't cope or we can't tackle the core issue, they need to tackle the core issue. And that is what the government ought to be having a Cobra meeting about today. This is the real emergency affecting everybody in the United Kingdom. It's been affecting us for many years now. My previous government failed to tackle the issue because they didn't have the guts to get out of the ECHR and therefore prevent all these human rights lawyers putting up obstacles for sending these illegals to Rwanda. We really need to get a grip on this, because if we don't, Ian, this problem is going to continue and get worse. It really is. We've got absolutely... you don't need to be Mystic Meg to know what's going to happen to the United Kingdom in another year if we've done nothing. More and more people are going to come. It's going to cost millions and millions of more. And yes, then Andy Burnham is going to have to put these illegals in areas where you ordinarily wouldn't have them. They shouldn't be in the United Kingdom in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. I mean, a couple of points on this. Firstly, it's not true that there are no HMOs in other areas in the country. But secondly, the point is, you would, as a government, the one thing you'd like to think they do is look for the cheaper accommodation. So that's naturally not going to be bang in the middle of Mayfair or in the Cotswolds, because that would obviously cost the taxpayer a lot more money to accommodate them.
Yeah. And why is it that we're not mobilising boats in the Channel, which are roughly the same size as the boats that are coming in, and turning these boats around? That's what we ought to be doing. Yeah. Instead of paying £650 million to the French to enable the gendarmes to man the coast of Calais in order to wave off the illegals getting into boats and sailing towards the United Kingdom, we ought to be spending that money on boats equipped, I would say, with naval personnel, and turning those boats around, or not allowing them into British waters. That's what we ought to be doing. Anybody, Ian, who enters the United Kingdom in one of these boats should be guilty of a crime immediately of entering the United Kingdom illegally, and they then ought to be deported to a third country or back to the country where they came from. It's as simple as that. We saw what happened in Ceuta when the Spanish got in. They managed pretty quickly to get the vast majority of those people back into Morocco. We ought to be doing exactly the same with these illegals coming in. They're not fleeing France because France is a problem country, because France is not at war the last time I looked. France is a very, very safe country. And so they're not fleeing France. They are attracted to coming to the United Kingdom for all sorts of reasons, including, I dare say, the ever-burgeoning welfare system that we've got in this country. And they know that when they come, they may not end up in a hotel these days, but they are going to end up somewhere. They are going to end up being looked after. And we don't know who these people are, Ian. We literally do not know. You know, some of them could be and have proven to be criminals.
And there's the problem. I use the phrase every day. We're being asked to play Russian roulette on a daily basis with unidentified young men. It is beyond belief, but we've sort of got used to it, and we're not quite developing Stockholm syndrome, but it's to be generous, it's bizarre. To be more brutal, it's frankly criminal. And despite all of that, and here's the real kicker for me this morning, Nigel Evans, Andy Burnham is ahead in the polls. And if there was an election tomorrow, he would win it. How, in the name of John Curtis, we'll speak to him later, has this happened?
Well, we know why, Ian. It's not because they are surging into the territory that used to be the case in the 1990s, when you needed something like 42, 43% to be absolutely assured of winning a general election, because of the fractionalised nature of British politics at the moment, with Reform coming in, Restore coming in, and then on the left you've got the Greens and Independents as well. What we've seen is with Keir Starmer, for instance, that he got a huge majority on 33.7% of the vote. And Andy Burnham might well easily do exactly the same. I don't believe that he's just going to rely on the odd poll. He's going to be drilling down on seat-selective polls to find out whether he is going to get a majority. He's not going to risk going to the polls and being kicked out of number 10. But what I do believe is that he could get a big majority on 31, 32% of the vote. And if he's drilled down in those special seats and worked out that he's going to win that next election, I believe he'll call one.
I think you're absolutely bang on. It's going to be interesting over the next couple of months. Nigel Evans, we stop there for time and no other reason. Thank you. Enjoy the eclipse, enjoy the bubbles as well. At the same time, Nigel Evans, former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, with us here on Talk. Over to you in a couple of moments as well. Or Enid says, morning, Ian, with reference to the latest opinion poll, could it possibly be that Reform supporters are saying that they support Labour to hopefully encourage Burnham to call an election? Then really stuff Labour. Fingers crossed, as in... Yeah, I mean, it could be that what seems to be happening is that Burnham is taking these votes from kind of Green voters and maybe some Lib Dems. Those that were wavering under Keir Starmer have now rejoined the Labour club, as it were. I think that's what's going on here. Thoughts from you on that number? Message 87222, 20 past 7. This is Talk.
sex basis on biological sex.
Yeah.
And therefore you cannot have people going into a women's space, which is for women only, who is not a biological woman.
I was wondering whether that interview was conducted on April Fool's Day, because I think it was a new low in the sort of...
A new low for low?
A new low for low, because, I mean, just the absurdity of not being able to ask a very basic question about the monarch of our country.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk, yeah, morning, Wednesday morning, it's Eclipse Day, we're not quite Midsummer's Day, but it's going to be the peak of the heat wave, apparently. Could be up to about 38 degrees. It's so bad, and you're not going to believe this if you've just joined us. Andy Burnham, Prime Minister, by the way, is calling a COBRA meeting. Yeah, an emergency meeting to discuss the weather. Just quick question, what can he do about it? What's the conclusion from that? Oh, we've had a meeting. We've decided we're not going to accept 38 degrees, but we will accept 33.5. I mean, really? But doesn't have a meeting for many other things. Let's get a voice note on immigration. This comes from Tony. Morning, Tony.
Morning, Ian. Tony from Enfield. Great show. So Andy Burnham has said that we need to play our part and welcome these migrants into our communities, do we? No, I don't think so. I mean, I never sent for them, and I'm sure millions of other people up and down the country didn't send for them either. No one wants them here. So all this rubbish that he's coming out with, growth in every postcode, hope in every heart, well, that won't be the case, because all it'll will be debt in every postcode and resentment in every heart, because people are about as sick as can be with this now. It's gone beyond a joke. I mean, this guy, the Burnham bounce is going to be the Burnham bang in the not too distant future, and good.
Iffy HMOs in every postcode seems to be Burnham's new line on this. Yeah, we've got to get these HMOs all over the place. Got to spread it out. Here's an idea, Prime Minister. Why not have, do something about the boats. We won't even be having this discussion. It's massively expensive. It's criminal that politicians haven't dealt with this. And every single person that sits in that big chair in Downing Street is absolutely clueless as to what to do. Let's move on to other matters. Pete's in Devizes on the solar eclipse. Pete, what have you got for us? Morning.
Yeah, good morning, Ian. Yeah, nobody's mentioned yet about welding masks.
Welding mask? Well, if you haven't got any glasses. We've all got one of those in the shed, haven't we? A welding mask.
Well, I'm now retired, but I was a welder. And back in 1999...
Well, you've probably got loads of them.
Welding. Yeah. Well, back in 1999, I used my welding mask to watch the eclipse and work perfectly.
Yeah.
So that's what I'll be using again tonight. So if you've got a friendly welder and he doesn't want to watch the eclipse tonight...
Can you get... OK, you're going to have to educate me. So if I nip down to Screwfix this afternoon, they sell welding masks, I'd imagine. Can you get, like, a cheaper kind of, not quite a throwaway one, but can you get... There must be a pecking order of the... Is there an Apple of the welding mask compared to some sort of...
I've got quite a high-tech one, which is what they call a reactor light, where you can actually see the work, and then as soon as you strike the arc, which is as bright as sun... it immediately goes dark within a nanosecond, and you can watch it perfectly. But you can get the cheaper ones, which, it's still about £30. I expect something like that, because you get the shield, the hood shield and all that sort of around it as well.
Yeah. What do they cost? What's a welding mask cost, Pete?
Well, mine was about £100.
£100 for a moody sun?
I know you weren't going to pay that just to watch the eclipse tonight, but if you know somebody who's got one, it does a bit of welding, then if they're not going to use it, see if you can borrow it.
Well, I mean, my mate John up the road, he's in the sort of building game, so he's got loads of, feelers out on this kind of stuff. I'm sure he could get a welding mask, but then, of course, I'm going to be in a battle with my own family, aren't I? They're all going to sit there with their eyes being, blistered, and I'm going to be in a deck chair in the back garden with a welding mask.
Well, you can pass it around, so we can have a look for like 10 seconds or something like that.
Wow. Apparently you can get welding glasses for £1.89.
Yeah, make sure they're the say the correct ones. Make
Dark
sure
ones?
they're dark enough. There are different ones you can get for like what they call oxyacetylene welding,
Right.
which aren't as bright. You can still see through them, and they're not really powerful enough. But the actual where you do welding, like MIG, TIG, arc welding, stuff like that, the head with the full head shield, that's the ones that will work.
That's what I need to do. I'm going to be on the hunt right when this show finishes. Couldn't get any for love nor money. Brilliant call. Pete, thank you for that. Good luck with your welding glasses and the eclipse later tonight. Let's move on to this story. It's not going away, and neither should it. Every police chief in the UK has signed an unprecedented joint letter demanding that Andy Burnham do everything possible to stop the early release of PC Andrew Harper's killers. This is a joint letter of 50 chief constables united to tell the Prime Minister to examine every lawful option to ensure that Albert Bowers and Jesse Cole serve their full sentences. Let's get a word with James Riley, former probation officer, founder of Getaway and Get Safe, who runs courses nationally. James, morning to you.
Morning.
Never an easy one, this, you know. Who do you release, who do you not release? In an ideal world, I guess, you know, early release, which of course is different to having a sentence that you can serve an agreed part of. This is an addition to that. Most people would say, well, we shouldn't be releasing anybody early.
But that's not our system, is it?
No.
Our system is that you release at the halfway stage, and that's going to change, where people are going to be released after a third of their sentence.
So we've got an early release upon an early release, really?
You could say that, yeah. But I think the problem here is that our prisons are full, and that's fact. The prisons are full.
Yeah.
But if people press rewind, Andy Burnham's inherited the problem that the prisons are full. The prisons have been overcrowded for many years.
Correct.
We had successive Conservative governments who knew that, who did nothing to increase the prison estate. So the criminal justice system has been under pressure for many years.
Yeah, and you, as you,
as well.
Yeah, you will know better than me, James, that you know these early release things have been happening for a long time, and half the time they never really got discussed. It never really sort of hit the news radar. So they've been there for a long time. You're absolutely right. The last government did pretty much nothing to address this. They could see it coming around the corner. They would, you know, throw a few cosmetics on it, talk about doing up a few cells over there in Wormwood Scrubs or wherever, and claim that was some kind of extra prison places. This needs meaningful action, doesn't it? And you know we keep hearing about prisons being sort of half built or semi-built or whatever, or in the planning stage. We're not really. I can't ever. Every time we see a picture, you ask any news organisation we have here, if you want to show a picture of a prison, you know, you normally show a picture as an aerial shot of Strangeways or Pentonville or something. You don't very often see some brand spanking new prison that was built in the last year or so. But apparently there are some being constructed at some shape or form.
Yeah. Well, at one stage, prisoners were housed in police cells. That's how overcrowded it was.
That's right, I remember that.
Going back to what I was going to say before, the whole criminal justice system needs looking at.
Yep.
So what's going to happen is you're going to release these prisoners, people early. How are the probation service going to cope? Has anyone thought of that? What about housing services? There's so many services going to now be put under pressure. But the main concern that we've got to remember is safeguarding the victims when people are released. Can the services available now cope with all these people about to be released, and can victims be safeguarded?
You're absolutely
massive investment.
Yeah, you're bang on, James, in that. Just something I raised without any of the kind of qualifications or experience you have, but it seemed pretty obvious to me that somebody doesn't just walk out of a jail and then, you know, get on with their life. There's a system in place that then follows, obviously depending on who it is and the kind of crime and all the rest of it. The probation service kicks in, all manner of other agencies could be involved in that as well, and suddenly you're going to have thousands of people in a system that they're being taken out of because the system can't cope inside. But can the system cope outside? I think you've just answered it.
Can the system cope outside? And I'm not really sure that the system can.
Yeah.
So you're going to have people released who may have been sentenced for violent behaviour, sent to prison, and if these people who come out then commit a serious offence, there's then massive investigations, and it'll go back to, well, the prisons were full, so we released people.
Yeah.
But it goes back to, if you'd have invested 15, 20 years ago, we probably wouldn't be in this situation.
Yeah.
So Andy Burnham inherits a situation that's not really his problem. And what I always find is you have all these conservative political commentators and ex-MPs. You've had your chance to sort this out and you didn't, so I'm not really sure we can now kick Andy Burnham.
Well, but there's a point. There's a point, isn't there, when we go, OK, he inherited it, but then there's a point where we get to go, but it is, you know, he is the Prime Minister. He doesn't do this on his own. There's an entire department. There's a civil service. There's a Home Office. There's all manner of other areas. So it is now his problem, whether he likes it or not.
Yeah, it's fair. In
terms of who we release, because, of course, that is as debatable as the release in itself, isn't it? You know, there's an argument that says, look, any level of violence, that seems to be the one that comes up. You might have a different view on this, I don't know, James, but if you've committed a violent offence, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's manslaughter, obviously the high-profile case we've been discussing, any of those offences should never be on the early release scheme. What are your thoughts on that?
My understanding is life sentence prisoners won't be on the early release scheme, but everybody else is. Probably not sexual offenders, I'm not sure, but someone's got to make a decision, and it's a tough decision. And no matter what decision is going to be made, people will argue whether it's the right or wrong decision. My opinion is, I don't think prison works anyway. Prison doesn't work. I don't think prison really changes people's behaviour. Therefore, we've got to take it all the way back again and make sure that people in prison get the help that they need so that they've got more chance of being a success on the out. If prison change people's behaviour, then they're going to be released. And if they haven't changed, are they more likely to commit or likely to reoffend? And the answer is probably yes. We've got to help people in prison.
There were, I mean, we could argue that for decades we've had this problem. Rehabilitation, is it meaningful? Does it work? Do people come out of jail, you know, more corrupt and more criminally minded than they went in? And we know that that can be an issue as well. If somebody puts you in what essentially is just a holding pen for 6-7 months, a year, and nothing really happens in that time, and then you go out again, you've got nowhere to go to, you've got no meaningful way of earning a living, you've still probably got the addiction.
Or even
Homelessness, the addiction proclivities you had before you went in. None of that changes. You just moved a human being into one area from another area for a year. And then we scratch our heads and go, well, it's really odd that Bob just went, you know, he got absolutely off his face on Class A's and went and robbed a house. Well, yeah, that's because nothing happened to him in the intervening year.
Yeah. Well, we're asking people to change without any help, and it doesn't happen, does it? So, like I said at the start, the whole system needs to change.
It does. Do you think? I mean, I tend to agree. You know, there's probably look. We can all be armchair prime ministers, like in the same way we can all be armchair majors when it comes to defence issues, and of course we can all be armchair prison officers and the like. But I always think there's the idea of tagging and curfews and all the rest of it. I've sensed for a long time is very underused when it could be the answer to some of these problems. There's clearly a whole load of people where. I mean, the idea they're in jail, I think we'll look back at this in 100 years' time, James, and go, what the hell were we doing? Why were we wasting all that money on prison? Obviously, if you're a violent criminal, you're a rapist, a child sex offender, yep, that's exactly the play. You've got to be away from the public. We all get that. But when they're scratching their heads and looking for who to release, I mean, sure, there must be thousands in there. I don't know. People who've committed fraud, for example. You know, you ended up in jail because you did some kind of moody transaction and trousered a few quid along the way. Not a great look. Yes, you should be punished. Just because you might be, I don't know, more of a middle-class offender should not let you off the hook, although it wouldn't exclusively be one class in that respect. I just don't think jail is the right... There must be loads of people in jail who committed those kind of offences. Wouldn't they be top of the list to come out tomorrow?
Well, they probably are top of the list.
Yeah, maybe they are. There's quite a few people on that list. To compound the problem, of course, I think there's a probation department strike looming as well. So it's going to be a double bubble of doom, this, isn't it?
Well, solidarity to my ex-probation colleagues.
Well, that might be so, but the upshot is going to be it's going to compound the problem you identified at the beginning.
Well, that's because of underfunding and of the probation service, and you know, they haven't had a pay rise in years, high caseloads, more and more heaped on. Why shouldn't people say I've had enough?
No, I get it, and I don't imagine
people are saying they've had enough. So, I'll go back to it. The whole criminal justice system needs investment, and it needs to look after its staff. And maybe we might see some changes.
But I absolutely agree. And if there is disquiet, and I know there is, and you're confirming it here now, James, in that service, then you're absolutely bang on. Why would you not have the hump and say, look, you know, we're being asked to do more and more and more and more for less and less and less and less. We can't cope, and the situation's about to get even worse with the early release. It's a vicious circle. James, I appreciate your time, sir. Thank you very much indeed. James Riley is a former probation officer. He's also the founder of Get Away and Get Safe. He runs courses nationally in this area as well. Thank you to him. I do have a sympathy with probation officers. I don't like striking, but I can see why you would be in a situation where the pressure on you in that world is so great, it is so unworkable, that you're either going to up sticks and go and work somewhere else, and you're never going to get a replacement, or you're going to try and get some extra. It's not always about money, it might be resources. Striking is a horrendous scenario for anyone, but there's a bit of all of us that kind of gets it. And you met the probation, imagine being in that world. How dark and challenging and impossible, how cul-de-sac-like that must be. And they're about to just be told, oh, and here's another 10,000 people you've got to deal with that weren't there last week. Where's the money? Where's the accommodation? Where are you going to put these people? 0344 499 1000. More from you on the way. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. 0344 499 1000 228. Arnie says, why is there no talk of letting people out that have been in prison for tweeting words that someone found upsetting? It's an absolute joke that these people were put away anyway. There's a lot. I mean, don't get me started on that one. Look, I get it. If you, the idea of hurty words is disingenuous. It's not quite. You can, if you wrote some of that stuff on a poster and displayed it in the high street, you'd be nicked. All right. So there is such a thing as incitement. There is such a thing as threats. There's such a thing as breaking the law in that respect. So I don't write it off as they're just words, because otherwise we would have no laws of libel and goodness knows what else. However, prison is not the place. Prison is not the place for so many people, and I think that cohort would absolutely, as Arnie correctly identifies, would absolutely be up there. Marion in Doncaster says, do not wear a welding mask to watch the eclipse. You risk damaging your eyes. You can only use eclipse glasses with the CE mark. Is that official? I mean, does a welding glass not do the same thing? Apparently, we can't recommend welding glasses in case somebody has their pupils burnt out and we get the blame for it. Thank you, Marion, for that. So the Burnham bounce has seen Labour ahead in the latest poll. In addition to that, 1 in 5 people in Clacton would rather vote for Count Binface in the up-and-coming by-election than for Nigel Farage, according to a poll as well. Let's get some detail on this. Sir John Curtis joins us, polling expert, Professor of Politics, University of Strathclyde. Always good to see you, John. Just a word on this. It's always intriguing, and this is the kind of stuff that has got you out of bed for decades, of course, because it's your bread and butter. But it's genuinely interesting to me. Just the first point. As a country, are we more left-wing or more right-wing?
Oh, that's a good question. Quite difficult. British social attitudes certainly, which I have responsibility for, certainly runs a series of questions about whether or not we're too unequal as a society and whether the government should be trying to make it less unequal. That certainly for 10 years or so, between about 2010, 2020, 2021, did see a little bit of a movement towards the left after basically 30 years of pretty much stability. But there certainly hasn't been a dramatic change once you define left and right in that way. There's another way in which at the moment we're tending to also use left and right, but which actually where people, a matter on which people's attitudes are not necessarily the same as their attitudes on questions of inequality. It's what we can call a social conservative versus social liberal spectrum. So it's the arguments about immigration, about Brexit, about equalities policies. On that, we tend to get associated with attitudes towards things like abortion, same-sex relationships. That's an area where we have become much more, well, I would prefer the word liberal, other people might use left-wing, become much more liberal as a society during the course of the last 30 or 40 years. And that, frankly, is one of the reasons why some of those people who are uncomfortable with the fact we've become a more diverse society, more liberal society, have been attracted to the arguments put forward by Reform, because Reform essentially, their core ideological group, the people above all who support them, are those who are doubtful about liberalisation and increased diversity of Britain.
The reason I asked the question, John, was because I do wonder whether Andy Burnham and his team have just done a very basic calculation. Look, there was that era where Keir Starmer for about 5 minutes sort of had a bit of a dalliance, if you like, with trying to head off disgruntled Reform voters and maybe claw them back. He talked about the island of strangers and all that little era that can win you this election, Prime Minister. You are far better and advised to really focus on that, because there's more of them than there are of the other lot. I wonder whether they've had that kind of, I'm putting it crudely, but a conversation like that.
There is a calculation, but I think it's a slightly different one. The truth is that the reason why, as it were, Labour were tacking to more conservative, more right-wing positions under Morgan McSweeney's influence was that, before the 2024 election, they didn't think they could win a general election unless they reconnected with some of the more working-class traditional Labour voters who had voted for Leave. In the end, that endeavour wasn't particularly successful, but they managed to win the election anyway. And then, of course, with the initial rise of Reform, Labour were losing votes quite heavily to Reform, although nothing like to the same extent as the Conservatives. Yeah. Then along came Zach Polanski and the Greens, and they then started taking even more votes off the Labour Party and were Reform. And that certainly is one of the reasons why Labour have had incentive to tack a little bit more towards the left. The truth is there is a fundamental problem here that faces both Conservative and Labour, which is historically you've basically said, look, you go towards the centre, so the Conservatives a little bit right of centre, Labour a little bit left of centre, because that's where most voters are. And it's impossible, particularly under our electoral system, for parties to the further to the right right and further to the left to prosper. That last assumption no longer seems to be true, because we've got Reform doing quite nicely by adopting more socially conservative position, the Conservatives, and the Greens, although their support's now down in the wake of the Burnham bounce, the Greens have done quite well by adopting stances very clearly to the left of Labour. So that's what's changed. It's the more of a party political calculation, rather than necessarily simply how many people are on the left and how many people are on the right.
Indeed, and these are not Reform voters that are going, oh, this Burnham chap looks rather good. These are the sort of fence-sitting Greens and Lib Dems that are more likely to hop over to Andy Burnham's camp.
For the most part, the Burnham bounce does seem to be rooted primarily in Liberal Democrats and Green voters, or people who've been supporting Liberal Democrats and Greens in recent months who perhaps voted Labour in 2024, going back to the fold. That said, Labour have profited to some degree from what I think is an entirely separate development, which is the fact that support for Reform is about 2 or 3 points down since Nigel Farage precipitated the Clacton by-election, which of course takes place tomorrow, in the wake of various allegations about both 5 million quid that was given to him for security purposes, and also about other aspects of the funding of Reform, in particular Mr. allegations surrounding Mr. Cottrell. Labour have problems with that, but so also with the Conservatives. And I think we should say, by the way, the Conservatives, they're only at 20%, but it does mean they're now only 4 points behind Reform, and that is 3 points up from where they were in the autumn of last year. So it's not just Labour who have very clearly advanced, recovered some of the lost support in recent weeks with the change of Prime Minister, but the Conservatives also have made a measure of progress as well.
Indeed. We'll talk about Clacton just briefly in a second, but I just noticed this as well, some breaking news. Rupert Lowe has tweeted that a deal with Reform is off. He said, Reform UK have said that a pact with Restore Britain is off. That is their decision. I'm not getting into the personality differences of it at all. I can't be bothered. If Reform want to discuss policy, not personality, then they know where to find me. So he's saying that Reform are... So Rupert Lowe's words, but he's citing Reform as being the party that are saying this is off. This could have been pivotal, of course, and it may... I mean, he does say if they want to talk policy, they know where to find me. So that doesn't sound like it's entirely off from his perspective. Coming together would make a bit of a difference. Is it a decisive difference if Restore and Reform join hands?
It depends on lots of other things. So at the moment, Restore Britain seem to be running at around 2 or 3% in those polls that ask people about them or tabulate them separately. And frankly, most polls still don't do so. That's minuscule as compared with Reform's still current tally of 24%. But of course, the fact that Reform are now 2 points behind Labour may in part at least be a consequence of the fact that some of the people who might have otherwise be supporting for them are now supporting Restore Britain, and that therefore reduces Reform by 2 points, which is the Labour lead currently in the polls. I think more broadly, however, I think the challenge that will face Restore Britain is this. We now know that Reform are able to put up 5,000 council candidates in English local elections at the beginning of May and to fight all the seats in Scotland and in Wales. Reform are creating a party organisation up and down the length of Britain. Restore Britain have a little area of strength in Great Yarmouth, which of course is Rupert Lowe's constituency. The challenge for Restore Britain will be whether or not they can actually create a party organisation up and down Britain, so that whatever share of the support they've got is actually reflected in how people vote, as opposed to doing well in particular by-elections, such as in Makerfield and Greater Manchester, where they got 7, 8, 9% of the vote. So we'll wait and see. But if Mr. Lowe is really going to cause problems for Reform, he's got to be able to demonstrate an ability to stand up and down the length of Britain, and we'll wait and see whether he can do that or not.
And John, just briefly, 1 in 5 people in Clacton would rather vote for Count Binface, apparently, than Nigel Farage in the up-and-coming by-election.
Well, look, we shouldn't be surprised that there are some people in Clacton who don't want to vote for Nigel Farage. He got 46% of the vote in 2024. The same poll suggests that just over half would vote for him if it were a general election with Conservative and Labour standing. John Harvey, who is Count Binface, has stolen a march on all the other 32 people standing against Nigel Farage by getting in there very early and getting a lot of publicity. I've got some question marks about the poll because it only gave people as an option as alternative to Farage, Camp Binface and a couple of other candidates. Didn't include, for example, John Stevens, the Rejoin EU candidate, who one might expect you might want to use this as an opportunity to appeal to Conservative and Labour voters. But sure, if you are a Labour, Liberal Democrat, Green voter in Clacton, what do? You could stay at home.
Yeah.
You don't want to vote for Nigel Farage, but maybe voting for Camp Binface is a way of demonstrating your discontent. And in a sense, one of the things that's happened is that the way in which it's been treated by sections of the media is, oh, look, wasn't Nigel Farage silly holding this by-election? The only person who's really seriously competing with him is Camp Binface. Yeah. And to some extent, at least, therefore, a vote for Camp Binface is being regarded as a way of cocking the snook at Mr. Farage.
On that point, John, great to speak as ever. Great stuff from Sir John Curtis, polling expert, Professor of Politics, University of Strathclyde. That by-election is tomorrow. I was thinking it was a week tomorrow. It's tomorrow, for goodness sake. Let's have a reminder then of the candidates standing in Clacton.
So the full list of candidates for the Clacton by-election: Joseph 77, the Independent; Adam Akatip, the Forward Party; Camp Binface, the Camp Binface Party; Nick the Incredible Flying Brick, the official Monster Raving Loony Party; Tony Kane's an independent. Woke Trump Kazi is an independent. William Stewart James Clouston is the Social Democratic Party candidate. Rhys Cowan, an independent. Glenn Charles Cummings, an independent. Martin Davis, the Freedom Alliance Real People, Real Alternative. Andy Earlam's an independent. Nigel Farage, the Reform UK Party. Atiye Fard's an independent. Lawrence Fox for the Reclaim Party. Tony Francis is an independent. Robin Green, an independent. Abby Hookway, an independent. Howling Lord Hope, the official Monster Raving Loony Party. Stephen Richard Ingram is an independent, as is Amy Morris. Derek Norbert Morris is an independent. Michael Noel O'Keefe, an independent. Martin O'Brien, an independent. Nick Pellis, an independent. And Ketanar Kumar Pipiaya is the UK Voice Safer and Stronger UK Party. Daniel Pocock's an independent. James Ransley, the Consensus Party candidate. Jerry Smith is an independent. Kai Stevens for the British Democrats. John Stevens for Rejoin the EU. Baron von Thunderclap for the official Monster Raving Loony Party. Pamela Walford is an independent. Marcus White, Everyone is God Party. And Mark Wilkinson for the Independents.
Thank you for that. It's 5 to 8. Let's move on to another matter here. The Australian Prime Minister in a sexism row over an ad lib about Japanese melons. Sophie Ellsworth joins us, News Corp Australia's Europe correspondent. I mean, look, I think this is his second innings in the sexism row, of course, after the Kylie thing, in a matter of months. So what's gone on? What's happened? Tell us the story, Sophie.
So he's basically gone on this podcast, this really a low-rent style podcast in Australia. Yeah. And he's been asked various things, including who would he shag, marry and date. We know that he said Kylie Minogue, and that caused a whole uproar. But now the second part of the story is that he was asked about crappy gifts he's been given, and he said he received crown melons, a Japanese fruit, from the Japanese Prime Minister. Yes. But he did the actual hand gestures insinuating breasts when he was talking about this on the podcast. And now the former ambassador from Tokyo to Australia has come out and said, this is disgraceful. You've damaged relations with Australia. And he's been asked to say sorry. Now, the Prime Minister's saying, I did nothing wrong. This is very, very embarrassing.
So this is... So the fact that he was given a pair of melons as a gift... See, we're already
Don't
laughing.
laugh.
So he was given a pair of melons from the Japanese Prime Minister.
Correct.
And which is fine, because apparently it is a bit of a special fruit, and there's a very specific type of melon as well, I understand. I mean, there's melons and there's melons, as anyone will tell you. But it was the gesticulation of the hands to insinuate that melons meant breasts in a sort of... I don't know if you had Benny Hill in Australia, but it was in that sort of ballpark. Yeah, but Christian still watches it, our producer. He can't get out of bed in the morning without an episode. It was that moment, wasn't it? It was doing the hands thing when he said melons.
Yes, and the podcast host also referenced, like Pamela Anderson. So she was insinuating breasts. He went along with it. And what sparked this whole thing up is that the former ambassador has written this piece in an Australian newspaper and basically said it's deplorable, called him out, and he said, I'll just quote this, the former Japanese ambassador to Australia said, "So, Prime Minister," he's saying to Albanese, "please enjoy Japan's sweet and juicy melons without thinking about a woman's anatomy and instead focus on what our two countries must do together." That's pretty scathing.
That is quite
Albo
scathing.
is not apologising.
Right. We've got a clip, actually, just to confirm the evidence around the Australian Prime Minister. Let's have a look at this.
What's the most crap gift you've ever received on an overseas jaunt?
Oh, gee. I'll tell you something I got recently here that was pretty strange but ended up being quite good.
Yeah.
Was a melon. The Japanese Prime Minister brought a melon.
How did he get that through customs?
It's a royal melon.
Oh, she smuggled. It was a she.
She?
Did she smuggle it?
I don't know.
Oh, I'm expecting.
Got a couple of melons.
She brought two.
She brought two, as you do.
She just came in looking like Pamela Anderson.
She brought two.
Yes, really.
And they're beautiful.
Now, he kind of only half gestures the Benny Hill thing, or does he fully?
Look, it's bad.
She's encouraging it a
She's
bit,
encouraging him. He's silly enough to go along with
Who
it.
the hell is she, by the way?
She's just a podcaster in Australia.
Right, okay.
I don't know why he would sit down and do this podcast with her. It was absurd from the beginning when he's talking about who he'd bonk, and now he's
She's
talking
the same
about
one from
breasts.
last time, isn't she?
That's
He
right.
went back for more.
Well, no, it's the same podcast, but the second part has
Right.
flared up because the former ambassador has come out
Oh, I
and
see.
said this is disgraceful.
Gotcha.
Albo should just get up and say, look, I'm really sorry, I stuffed up. Because what we have to remind our listeners here is that he is very big on championing women. He's always banging on about women's rights, treat them respectfully. He's come out and said this, and he's just saying, look, it was misinterpreted. I've done nothing wrong. Just say sorry. But we should be talking about issues like cost of living and the prices in Australia, not melons and breasts.
Well, the cost of melons in Australia, I mean, what?
They're expensive. We're dealing with inflation at the moment.
There is, absolutely. When I was up in Australia a couple of times, I couldn't get a melon for love nor money, frankly. I mean, they were just out of my price range at the time. So he's going back again, same podcast, same way. She must be enjoying every moment of it.
It's the same. This is all in the one podcast.
Yeah.
So he hasn't gone back for seconds. It's all in the
So
one.
they only just released.
They've just released this now. About this again.
Can't wait for part 3.
Because the former ambassador has blown up about it. So who knows? Someone else might blow up about something. Really, he should just come out, say sorry, and the media cycle, you know how it works.
Yeah.
They move on very quickly. But instead, he's digging his little heels in and saying nothing to see here.
She is actually quite funny.
She's very funny.
In the sense that she retains a kind of fairly sort of joyous, mischievous demeanour.
But why would he sit down and do this? He's trying to be taken seriously. When he comes and sits here in 10 Downing Street with Andy Burnham, are you going to take him seriously? Probably not.
Well, melons will be off the menu, that's for sure. We know that much. Sophie, thank you.
Thank you.
Always good to see you. Sophie Ellsworth is News Corps Australia's Europe correspondent with us here on Talk. The news at 8 is next.
crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royal tea from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in Crisis. Subscribe to The Royal Tea from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Secretary has brought forward a very rigorous plan in relation to this, and let's remember, of course, the numbers can fluctuate, but overall boat crossings are down quite significantly year on year, so that does suggest that the plan is working.
We've just witnessed drone footage of the French authorities handing out life jackets to illegal immigrants and then waving them goodbye as they head on their way towards the UK. So the French are actively helping and facilitating illegal immigration. In addition to that, the French forces did nothing to stop that huge migrant dinghy. In fact, the dinghy came out, then it went back to the beach to pick up even more illegal immigrants and then departed for a second time. During all of that, the French did nothing, and they even handed out life jackets and waved goodbye as these illegal immigrants head towards the UK. I think that's terrible. I mean that anyone who did cross the channel and arrive in Dover could be immediately deported within around about a week.
Give that a second, he's just dragging a line by the look of it.
Is that a warning shot towards us? I don't know.
Well, I was trying to work it out.
Okay. The French officers could clearly see we were conducting an interview on the back of the fishing boat. They sailed extremely close to us and started firing gunshots, 11 live rounds. We could see the bullets hitting the water behind our boat. They weren't firing before their approach. They weren't firing afterwards. There was no notification of any kind of training exercise. So it did seem to me to be an effort to intimidate us.
The thing that I find, and I should say alarm clock Brits find so frustrating, Chris, and this is why I wanted you on this morning. Yesterday, finally, the unelected Messiah of Manchester stood up and said to consummate fury from most of us that Labour's plan to stop dinghy migrants is working. This, Chris, despite the fact that 1,000 illegal migrants have still come into this country in the last 9 days since he became Prime Minister.
Je suis un député dans le Parlement du Royaume-Uni. Why have you allowed the migrants into the water? Why haven't you stopped them?
Our order is to let them go like that.
Your order is to let them go?
We just have to say to them, don't do that, it's dangerous.
So your orders are not to intervene?
We have to protect them.
Well, there's also protecting the border as well.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk Breakfast. Yeah, good morning. 8:05, Wednesday, the 12th of August. Welcome along. It's Collins in for Carl. Midsummer. It's also Eclipse Day as well, or something like that. The sun goes in, the moon pops out, the zombies arrive. Who knows? More on that later. Also coming up, Andy Burnham has said middle-class families should play their part by accepting asylum seeker accommodation near their homes. What does he mean, firstly, by middle classes? What does he mean by playing your part? Is this some sort of national effort that we've all got to rally behind? That's how it sounds. Why should anyone of any background be forced to comply with a policy that has been born out of chronic government ineptitude? We'll have details on that as well. And despite all of this, however, Labour have still overtaken Reform in the latest opinion polls. No idea what's going on there, but it once again provokes those rumours of an early election. What do you seriously think might happen if Andy Burnham goes to the country, as the phrase goes? Also, some civil servants are still spending fewer than 2 days a week in the office, despite rules that specifically require them to be at their desks for at least 60% of the time, according to new analysis. What do they do there? Are they all diligently working away? You'd like to think so. Or are they at the gym or on a Beano to the Rose and Crown? Thoughts on that? And the heat wave is back. Your tips for staying cool. It clashes with the eclipse, of course. By the way, do we still have a heat wave if there's an eclipse? Surely for at least 2 minutes and 18 seconds. We don't. It's on hold. It's like being part of a nature documentary in real time. Apparently, Andy Burnham is holding a Cobra meeting to discuss the weather. A lot of big subjects out there. Early release, immigration. Cobra meeting? No. The weather? Yes. Big Cobra meeting. What's he going to do? Change the temperature? Details to come. Everything you need to know. We'll bring you all the breaking news right here on Talk 0344 499 1000. Let's start with a voice note. It comes from Helen. Morning, Helen.
Morning, Ian. Helen in Knutsford. So Andy Burnham thinks that everybody's got to have the illegal immigrants on their doorstep. I'm sorry, but no, nobody wants them. I wish Andy would listen to this radio station. Andy, nobody wants the illegal immigrants anywhere. It's not normal. It's like, we shouldn't have to accept this. We don't want it, for God's sake.
Interesting. No Cobra meeting for the Channel migrants, even though we had that whopping great big EasyJet-like boat arrived yesterday, 50 foot long, 230 people on there, and 20 children as well, which is quite pivotal, I sense, to the entire safety of the thing. Thoughts on that and more of your comments coming up. Let's go to word with Dan Hodges, commentator at The Mail on Sunday, regular with us on the programme. Morning, Dan. Can you hear us all right, Dan? We can't hear you.
I can.
We can hear you loud and clear now. Fantastic. Yes. Can I just start with this? I just spotted Rupert Lowe just tweeted something, and your eyes probably glaze over when I say Rupert Lowe, but it's he says the deal is off with Reform. He said Reform UK have said that a pact with Restore Britain is off. That is their decision, he says. I'm not getting into the personality differences at all. I can't be bothered. If Reform want to discuss policy, not personality, then they know where to find me. That rather sounds like, well, as far as Rupert Lowe is concerned, he's still up for some kind of deal. Does any of this matter?
Yes, I think it does matter. I mean, I think because it sort of plays into the sort of broader narrative that things are basically not going well. Indeed, some might say are starting to fall apart a bit for Reform. I mean, the only reason this sort of dialogue is taking place is because Restore, do now represent something of a political threat to Reform. Nigel Farage himself acknowledged that. It surprised me that he acknowledged it a week or so ago, having spent, most of the summer saying, "Oh, Restore and Rupert Lowe are an irrelevance." But yeah, I think in terms of the sort of the internal politics within Reform, the broader politics on the right, the increasing fragmentation on the right, yeah, I mean, it makes a difference. I mean, not, in my view, a huge decisive difference, but the reality is Restore are very much, and Rupert Lowe are very much a thorn in the side of Nigel Farage, and he doesn't really know what to do about them at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one, isn't it, for Nigel Farage, because, of course, he's made, and others within Reform have made very publicly their thoughts on some of the people that support Restore, and he's referred to as, I think, that lot or something. We don't talk to that lot, words to that effect. So whatever notionally some Reform and Restore voters might think, surely get together, that's a powerful force. It looks to me like some of the issues in the way are fairly irredeemable things.
Yeah, I mean, when this idea of some sort of pact or some sort of alliance was initially floated, I mean, I said at the time, I mean, I just couldn't see it happening because for no other reason, the individuals involved loathe each other more than they sort of despise their opponents further across the political spectrum, and since. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I mean, Rupert Lowe, when he made this offer, he was kind of messing with Nigel Farage and messing with Reform. I think he knew that, you know, Nigel Farage would not be able or would not be willing to respond positively to his olive branch. So, I mean, there was a bit of mischief making, to put it mildly, there. I mean, as I said, the idea of these disparate individuals working together with the amount of sort of fear and loathing there is around the two parties, I never thought that was a viable way forward.
I mean, if there was some pact before an election, that would mean one would assume Rupert Lowe would sit back in the House of Commons under the Reform banner, or would he still sit there as a separate party? I mean, it's a messy picture, isn't it?
This is the point. And also, I mean, you can talk about the individuals. You know, I was speaking to Restore supporters in the Makerfield by-election, where obviously they had a small but nonetheless significant presence. Restore voters do not like Reform.
Yeah.
Similarly, Reform voters do not like Restore. So the idea that even if, you know, Nigel Farage and Rupert Lowe could be, you know, convinced to sit in a room together, the idea that they could then go out and issue an edict to their supporters, okay, we've done some sort of deal or some sort of pact, and those supporters that would then just meekly fall into line, that's not really how politics works.
Nonetheless, despite all of this, Andy Burnham is ahead in the polls. So whatever's going on over there, something more positive for the Prime Minister. What do you make of that latest poll that puts him as the man that would win an election if there was one tomorrow?
Well, obviously, you know, it's one poll. Polls go up, polls go down. I mean, what is quite clear now, you know, since Andy Burnham came in, we have reached crossover in the polls. I mean, if you look at the average, Labour are now ahead, and sort of Reform's long run of being ahead in the polls has come to an end. I mean, my own view is there are a number of reasons for this. I mean, people talk about the Burnham bounce. I think that's too simplistic. I mean, I think there is an element of a Burnham bounce. I mean, I think, you know, a lot of people are sort of looking at Andy Burnham for the first time. They're quite liking what they're seeing. You know, he does, if you like to use that phrase, he does speak human. He seems more sort of rooted and engaged with ordinary people's concerns. And for the moment, there's a sort of guarded optimism about him. I do also think, though, a big part of that is not the Burnham bounce, but in effect a Starmer bounce. You know, Keir Starmer, I constantly said this on this programme, was such a uniquely distorting political prism because he was disliked so intensively by people across the political spectrum that it was very hard to get a judge about where politics really was and what the political landscape was. And obviously the other issue, I mean, you just touched on it, the other reality is, you know, Reform, who have, you know, were in the lead for a long time, are a bit of a basket case at the moment. I mean, you've just talked about Rupert Lowe. We've still got the fallout going on from Zia Youssef's comments in relation to the former Defence Secretary Ben Wallace.
Ben Wallace, yeah.
He was slapped down by Nigel Farage yesterday, who said his comments weren't appropriate. But his tweet is still up, so it's almost like Zia Youssef is challenging Nigel Farage's authority. Obviously, we've got that a certain event taking place that you don't want me to mention, because then you have to spend the next half an hour reading out a list of candidates.
True.
You know, so we've got all of this stuff is going on. You know, and I think those sort of three main components. I mean, the other one is also, in fairness, Kemi Badenoch is doing much better in terms of her personal ratings. So you put all those components together, and I think that's why Labour is now in the polls. I think it's too simplistic to say, oh, it's all the Burnham bouncer.
Can you envisage a time when the Conservatives will overtake Reform in polling?
Yes, I would be very surprised on the current trajectory if at some point this year we don't get crossover between the Tories and Reform, just because, you know, obviously, as I said, Reform are a bit of a basket case at the moment. But if you look at the polls, and I've been saying this, you know, for months, you know, Reform effectively peaked last October. And since that point, their poll rating plateaued, and since then has been in relatively steady decline. So unless there is something significant and dramatic that happens to arrest that decline over the next few months. Obviously, as I say, we've got a certain event coming up tomorrow, but then after that, my own view is the sort of the fundamental issues, reforms, increasing failure to actually come out with concrete policy examples. Obviously, we had that ludicrous, let's just pick people up from the small boats and invade France and take them back. That was rubbish. They've got problems with their policy agenda. They can't shake off, and Nigel Farage can't shake off the questions of the £5 million donation, the financial sleaze. And as I said, the whole Zia Youssef, farrago yesterday has shown that there are internal, really serious problems within reform.
Do you think he's going to be shown the door, Zia Youssef, at some point?
I think ultimately, yes, because if you speak to people within reform, the view, I wrote about this last week before this current fiasco. Within reform, the view is that Zia Youssef is frankly out of control, that he's running around making his own statements, making his own pronouncements. He's doing entirely independent from reform's broader communications team and communications operation. As we've seen yesterday, Nigel Farage said, no, come on, you crossed the line there, that's out of order. And Zia Youssef currently seems to be ignoring Nigel Farage. And, I do think the next stage of this will be Zia Youssef being in some way moved on or demoted within the reform operation, because, as I say, he's now seen as being too much of a loose cannon.
You mentioned reform's policy on boats, and I know you're certainly not buying into the idea that this can be achieved with Royal Naval assistance, and there are other commentators that have made a similar thing. Reform actually said, no, it can be done. No one's bothered to do it. There is a way around it. The reason I raised that again is because, of course, yesterday we had this massive boat, and, of course, it doesn't change the numbers, which consistently, while the weather is good, remain very high. But it was visually, quite a thing to see. Not only, demonstrably unsafe, and there were kids on board. So from a humanitarian side, this was horrendous. But it was audacious as well. It did, whatever part of the political spectrum anybody sits on, anyone would look at that and say, someone's taking the pee now. There wasn't any big statement from Downing Street on this. You might expect a Cobra meeting, Dan, on something as seismic and as visual as this. We didn't get a Cobra meeting, but we are going to get one today to discuss the weather. What's going on over there at Downing Street or in the Cabinet Office? They're talking about the weather. Well, what's he going to do about it? Change the temperatures?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on this sort of weather crisis Cobra meeting. I don't, for the life of me, understand, given the other issues that are taking place, the huge issues that the country is facing, why, as you say, a meeting to look at the weather is something that is Andy Burnham's priority. On the broader issue, though, of the small boats, or as we see in this instance, this particularly very large boat, partially this is actually bizarrely partially evidence of some success that the government's been having, because the reason why we're getting these very large boats is the government has been targeting the smugglers, targeting the transit of the boats across Europe, targeting production of the engines, etc.
Yeah.
And is having some success. So in a sense, the government's saying, well, we're having some success here. But as you rightly pointed out, you simply cannot have a situation where you have 200 people, more than the size of a small airliner, just piling into a dinghy and coming across. Yeah. And you've accurately pointed out, Andy Burnham's ahead in the polls at the moment. But as we move forward, his ability to get to grips with issues like this is going to be what defines his premiership. People quite like him at the moment. People quite like what he says. All of that's good. But but sometime soon, Andy Burnham is going to need to demonstrate he can get to grips with issues like this.
Dan, thank you. Dan Hodges, commentator at the Mail on Sunday, with us here on Talk. Lots of comments still to come on all of those issues from you as well. You can drop us a voice note on 0344 499 1000. Let's get a word with Chris Philp, MP, Shadow Home Secretary. Chris, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ian.
Nice to have you with us. Were you aware there's a Cobra meeting to discuss the weather today?
Well, I think I did see that, but frankly, the country has more pressing problems, like the flood of illegal immigrants who come into the nation every time the seas are calm, and the fact Andy Burnham is about to let out thousands of serious criminals. He ought to be concentrating on those issues, I think.
I think rightly so. I mean, you're absolutely right, and I don't think anybody has contacted us this morning to say otherwise. I mean, it does seem with a big old to-do list as a Prime Minister, any day is a busy day if you're the Prime Minister, but it's not as if we haven't got some rather obvious, fairly big things to talk about, early release and, you know, a small matter of a big boat crossing the Channel, among the many others that are crossing the Channel.
Yes, exactly. And Andy Burnham's suggestion yesterday that, middle-class areas or areas where hard-working families live should have illegal immigrants imposed on them just shows how out of touch he is. He thinks the solution to this problem is to spread illegal immigrants around the country. In fact, the solution is to deport illegal immigrants immediately that they arrive with no court process or asylum claim or lawyers or messing around. Just deport them straight away. They shouldn't be accommodated anywhere, not in hotels, not in villages, nowhere. If somebody enters our country illegally, they should simply be deported straight away.
Well, let's have a listen to the words that the Prime Minister came out with yesterday on this very point. Here he is.
We cannot have a situation where it's only the poorest communities in the country that receive, all of the dispersal of refugees and asylum seekers. I do believe all parts of the country need to work to play their part. It's a challenging issue. We're working at it. We understand people's concerns, and I will look into the issues raised by the good people of Piddington.
It's quite bizarre, Chris Philp, isn't it? He talks about this as if it's a sort of an agreed national effort that we're all part of. You've got to do your bit, like evacuees during the war or something. He's got that sort of flavour to it. Spectacularly missing the mood of the nation.
Yeah, I think Andy Burnham is totally out of touch and has totally misjudged this. He's got it wrong. He thinks that somehow this is some kind of shared national obligation to accommodate illegal immigrants in all parts of the country. He's got that totally wrong. We do not have, no one has, in any community, an obligation to accommodate illegal immigrants who have broken in to our country. These are mostly young men. Many of them don't speak English. They come from cultures that disrespect women. That is why so many rapes have been committed by these illegal immigrants who have entered our country illegally. No one has an obligation to accommodate these illegal immigrants in their community. I tell you who does have an obligation. Andy Burnham, as Prime Minister, has an obligation to protect our borders and to kick out these illegal immigrants the minute their feet touch British soil. He doesn't appear to understand that. He thinks everybody should accommodate illegal immigrants. It's his job, actually, to make sure they either don't get here in the first place or if they do, they're immediately kicked out. So Andy Burnham is completely failing, and that's probably why, in his first 22 days as Prime Minister, more illegal immigrants entered the country than in the first 22 days of any other Prime Minister, because these Burnham boats will keep on coming so long as we have such a weak Prime Minister.
What do you say, and this is an obvious thing just to throw in your direction, Chris, you'll understand why I ask you this, but there will be people, potentially throwing their shreddies at the radio right now going, hang on a second, Chris Philp was literally in the Home Office when the Tories were running the show. Far more people crossed the Channel under the Conservatives. They were coming on a daily basis. Nothing was done about it. What's with the change of tune? How dare you pontificate on an issue where you showed abject failure every day of the week?
Yeah, well, I was obviously most recently police minister, which doesn't have responsibility for immigration. But we do need a radically different approach because successive governments have not gripped this in the way they should. We did have the Rwanda scheme, don't forget, which would have seen these illegal immigrants sent to Rwanda. That was ready to go at the time of the election, but Labour very stupidly cancelled it just days before the first plane was due to take off. But we do need a radically different approach. And under new leadership, Kemi as leader and me as the new Shadow Home Secretary, we are going to take a radically different approach to the past. And that means leaving the ECHR, the European Convention on Human Rights, which is used by lawyers, by vexatious lawyers, taxpayer funded very often, who use the ECHR to allow illegal immigrants and foreign criminals to stay in the United Kingdom. As far as I'm concerned, protecting our borders is more important than the ECHR. And that is why we need to leave the ECHR. And that is a new Conservative policy. That wasn't the policy in the past.
No, true.
It is the policy now because Kemi and I take this so seriously.
But did you and Kemi both disagree with the policy at the time? You know, when you'd have cabinet meetings and various Home Office meetings. I appreciate you were policing minister, wasn't quite your department, but you know, you have conversations in the tea room and the cafeteria and the like. Did both of you think we've got this horribly wrong? Because Suella Braverman thought it was wrong. She was the Home Secretary. Robert Jenrick thought it was wrong, and he resigned as Immigration Minister. Were you in agreement with both of those people?
Well, I can only speak for myself, and I did have about 2 years, roughly, before the last election. I do remember having a conversation with a very senior person at Number 10 who worked directly for the then Prime Minister. And I said at the time, this is going back, it must be 3-4 years ago now, and I said, I think we need to leave the ECHR because otherwise we can't control our borders. So I did say that to Number 10, to a very senior person at Number 10 at the time, and to other people as well. But it wasn't until I became Shadow Home Secretary in opposition that I was able, working with Kemi and others, to change our party's policy. So our party's policy is now to leave the ECHR, and to make sure people, the public, your listeners, know that they can believe us when we say that. Every single Conservative candidate, whether they're a sitting MP or a new candidate at the next election, is going to have to sign up, literally sign up, to that policy in order to be a candidate, because we mean it, we mean business.
Chris Philp, thank you for your time. Chris Philp, MP, Shadow Home Secretary. You can believe us, says Mr. Philp. Are you sharing those views? Is that a moment where you think, well, actually, yeah, maybe they have turned a corner there? He said he floated the idea. Robert Jenrick resigned as Immigration Minister. Suella Braverman, while she remained in office, because they so often do, they love a red case and a free car, she said in her resignation letter, it was about 5 pages, as I remember, that you wouldn't let me do this, you wouldn't let me do that, so she legged it. Your thoughts on that? 0344 499 1000.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to The Royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Talk, yes, good morning. Welcome back. Just get the headphones in and we can kick off. It's just gone 8:30. This comes from Graham in Scunthorpe. He says, morning, Ian. Listening to your piece about the Australian Prime Minister being in hot water over the Melon podcast, I've never heard anything so utterly pathetic. Who on earth would take offence? It was clearly a light-hearted conversation, and he did nothing wrong. Who are these people seeking offence over everything for the sake of it? What a sad, pathetic world we are living in. The ambassador and others griping on about it need to grow up and get a bloody life, says Graham. Yeah, it was really quite innocuous. If you haven't seen it, look it up for yourself. But it's a comment about melons. I won't go over the whole story now. And it was all in context, but it's been used as a sort of a sexism thing. And it was the Japanese ambassador that got the hump about it, even though I don't think Mr. Albanese actually said anything. But, you know, it was a little bit cheeky. But it really came from the host of the podcast, not from him. But that's the work. Graham is completely bang on. It's the world we live in now. Oh, my goodness. Somebody said something I disagree with. Let's get massively offended over it. Lots to talk about. Let's get a word from Ross Clark, columnist over there at The Sun. Morning to you, Ross.
Good morning, Ian.
I don't think anything offends you, does it, really? We've all got better things to do.
Indeed, yeah, nothing offends.
Nothing at all. But lots of things do anger you. And I noticed in your column this morning, and I think we should talk about this, the story of J.K. Rowling's charity. Tell us more.
Yeah, well, this was Amnesty International, which, you know, when I was growing up, this was a saintly organisation which used to campaign against torture, taking on the world's dictatorships and military juntas and so on. But it now seems to have been reduced to sort of fighting against women's refuges, because last month it published a list of 117 organisations which it accused of being part of what it called the anti-rights movement. And one of them was a rape crisis centre that was, or sexual violence centre set up by J.K. Rowling in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And of course it's on this list. The reason it's on this list is because it won't accept trans women, won't accept men claiming to be women to use its services. And, you know, under Amnesty International's view, this is, you know, gender critical beliefs, as they're called, are anti-rights. They're a threat to human rights. So anyway, J.K. Rowling pushed back against this and sort of threatened Amnesty with legal action. Not just that, she offered some help with legal fees to other organisations which found themselves on Amnesty's list. And, well, Amnesty then sort of rapidly backtracked and withdrew its report, saying it was a terrible mistake. It didn't actually mean to publish it before it had been through its internal process. So that's what's going on.
It's interesting that you mentioned John Cleese in that article as well, because it wasn't lost on me either, of course. Back in the 80s, Monty Python did a whole... they called it the Secret Policeman's Ball. It was an annual comedy show to raise money for Amnesty International, and it was, you know, widely received because most people thought the charity is, you know, clearly quite a good thing. And I share your view of the image of Amnesty growing up. You know, it was there as this sort of totemic beacon to help desperate situations, address those living under despotic regimes and all sorts of other things. So, you know, good work and house points all round for the Amnesty boys. Monty Python jumped in on that and said, let's raise some money for it. They raised absolute bucket loads of cash for this charity. More recently, John Cleese has said, I renounce the mob that have taken over Amnesty. And this comes as, for those of us that follow this kind of stuff, the gradual sort of mission creep from certain interested parties who've found their way often into governments, which is perhaps slightly more alarming, but certainly into sort of big, once respectable, not even particularly controversial charities, find themselves being run by a cohort of almost Marxist-minded ideologues who have very different ideas from the original basis of Amnesty International.
Yes, and it's not just John Cleese either who's turned their back on Amnesty. The granddaughter of one of the co-founders, Sean McBride, was founded in Amnesty in 1961. She has come out against the organisation and said her grandfather would be appalled by the sort of things it's now doing.
Yeah.
Both on gender critical beliefs, but it's also sort of gone to war against pro-life campaigners. In its mind, sort of any restriction on the right to abortion is, means you're some kind of anti-human rights.
That's always a very bizarre one, that, isn't it? Because whilst I would be, I'm a bloke, so it always puts us in a slightly different position to women on that specific issue, but it doesn't mean simultaneously we have no right to comment, and our view could be underpinned by spiritual or religious intentions, etc. So yes, men can have a view on it, but the idea that it's controversial or somehow extreme to be against termination, in sometimes entirely and other times with certain criteria, usually based on time. The idea that that is a controversial position and almost an evil one is bizarre.
Yes. Amnesty's sort of asserting that to be a pro-life campaigner puts you beyond the pale. But, to put this into context, 1/4 of the UK population believe that the 24-week limit on abortion we currently have in Britain is too high, and it should be reduced perhaps to around 12 weeks, which is more common in other countries. Now, you can agree with that or you can disagree with that, but what Amnesty is trying to assert is, that is some kind of unacceptable view to hold. It makes you anti-human rights, whereas I think a lot of pro-life campaigners would say, look, hang on, we are respecting the human rights of the unborn child as well as the human rights of the mother, and those are two things which have to be balanced. So
the very antitheses of being anti-human rights. Some might not unreasonably argue. This is the kind of thing I would like to see the Prime Minister having a Cobra meeting about, frankly. But of course he's not going to do that because he's got a different kind of Cobra meeting today. And the reason I raise this with you, Ross, is because you write a lot on climate issues. I would imagine this is where Andy Burnham is coming from on this. So they're not having a Cobra meeting on Amnesty or the Channel migrants in their incredibly large, increasing numbers, or early release of very dangerous prisoners. They're having one on the weather today.
Yes. I think we've got a sort of one-day heat wave coming up tomorrow with temperatures of 35 Celsius predicted. I mean, in the context of summer, that's not particularly extreme. We've lived through higher temperatures, so I don't know why we need quite a Cobra meeting to deal with that. I'm not quite sure, but there is interesting. Obviously we are in a very, very dry, hot summer, and the drought is not unprecedented, but it's unusual. But what's interesting is actually against the general climatic trend towards slightly wetter summers. And we have, people jumping up and saying, oh, this is a vision of the climate change induced future. Well, actually, the longer term trend is towards slightly wetter summers, both in terms of the amount of rain and the frequency of rain. So I think that's a context which deserves to be taken into account.
Spot on. Ross, thank you for your time, as ever. Ross Clark, columnist at The Sun. You can read his column this morning, page 10. There it is. Attacking JK makes Amnesty just as bad as the rotten regimes it used to fight. And that's bang on. Who's running these organisations? Back to more domestic matters. Brian is in Hertfordshire. Brian, how you doing? Morning.
Not too bad, thank you very much.
Good. What have you got for us?
Just the outstanding calculations of the Andy Burnham thing. Like, he's told us that he's saved us a load of money and closed down and got rid of people out of hotels. But he didn't tell us where he's putting them.
No.
That was the first point. So
they just appear.
Supposedly saved us 50 million, but doesn't know where.
I think they're all going to Hertfordshire, Brian.
And then the other one is, we're getting things down, but we've got 160 hotels. Even if you average it at 50 people in there, that's 8,000 people times 20,000. That's millions upon millions that we're spending on looking after these migrants for no other reason.
Well, the numbers are, most of us can't recognise these kind of. They're absolutely horrendous, and of course. Mr. Burnham's idea is to spread the joy. You know, let's make sure every part of the country has these HMOs, and that's his way to do it. It's beyond the belief system of most human beings, but that's how these people rumble. Brian, thank you. I've got to move just to get more comment on. Alan is in North Yorkshire. Morning, Alan. How you doing?
Hello, Governor. It's the old fella here.
It is indeed. Well, you say old. You always sound about 33 when we speak, so you're doing all right.
Please, if only. I ain't even got my teeth in.
We can do it. It's not against Ofcom rules to broadcast without your teeth.
Listen, Governor, I don't know if any of our politicians can read, but if they could read, then they would read that between 56 and 48 million years ago, there was a massive amount of carbon dioxide pumped into the atmosphere. And I don't think there were too many cars about in them days or air conditioning units. It was a result of volcanic action. And it lasted for millions and millions and millions of years. And then about 34 million years ago, the Ice Age came. We used to have palm trees growing as far north as the Arctic Circle. It's not rocket science. You've only got to just read some books. Climate change isn't going to happen in our lifetime or in 20, 30, 40, 50 generations' lifetimes. It takes millions, tens of millions of years for climate to change. And I'll tell you, charging us an extra 60 quid for a long-haul flight or whatever, they could charge 20 million quid for a gallon of petrol. It's not going to change. It's all bunkum. It's a load of nonsense, and we need to be told the truth. And the truth is that climate change has been happening and will continue to happen for as long as the Earth is here, until the sun devours us in billions of years' time.
Well, I tell you what, I'm quite enjoying the sunshine at the moment. I know it's a bit hot in places, but it's quite nice. A bit unusual, isn't it? Listen, Alan, have a great day. Enjoy the weather. Alan in North Yorkshire. 8:45. More from you on the way. This is Talk. Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk. It's 8:45. Yeah, 8:45. Is it quarter to... Yes, 8:45. I had an absolute blindness. I had an eclipse of the clock. I couldn't see it. It's happened already. You missed it. The money you wasted on those glasses. Michael in Birchington says, morning, Ian. Can I suggest that number 10 North would be a good starting point for housing asylum seekers? Do you know what? I think that comment from Burnham is the single most graphic piece of evidence of his position on this. And there's been quite a lot of graphic evidence of his position on this, but it's crystallised in that one area. You know, I don't think it's fair that these people should be sent to the poorer areas. That's not, by the way, completely true. But the bit of it that is true is that they would go instinctively and mostly to areas where it's the least expensive for the local authority to have to stump up the cash. So that would be the reason for that. But the idea that he says, without even thinking of discussing the problem itself, that we should all be sharing the joy like we're taking in post-war evacuees or something, or during the war evacuees. It's that, isn't it? Where's his thinking on this? I keep saying it, his heart's not in this story. It's not in his DNA. He doesn't care. It's not that he doesn't care because he's thought about it and went, oh, sod you, I don't care. He philosophically believes in the very opposite to what most people believe on this. That's his belief system exposed right there in that one comment. Let's get a voice note voice note on the Reform Restore deal. Is it on? Is it off? According to Mr. Lowe, it's off. Here's one from Steve. Morning, Steve.
Morning, Ian. Steve from Yorkshire. Rupert Law knew Nigel Farage and Reform weren't going to hook up with him. He 100% knew that all it is a big PR thing, just so Reform say no, and then Rupert Law could say, see, my voters, he doesn't want to join us. He's just doing it to make Nigel look bad.
There could be something in that. Thank you very much, Steve. Mary is in Hemel Hempstead. Mary, what have you got for us? Morning to you.
Good morning. Couple of things, really. The first thing, I listened to the claptrap that came out of Nigel Evans. Why on earth are these people, whether they're legal or illegal, just moved into military sites that are fenced, that have high, like 20-foot wire fencing, are contained with locked gates? It's only going to be a matter of time before they won't want to go to those places, and the word will get back, don't go to England, because all they'll do is put you in whatever, and you can't wander the streets, particularly these young men, and you won't get anything. Your state, you are contained. And the other thing with regards to the climate change, I quite fully agree with Alan, what he said. It's been happening for centuries, for thousands of years. The oil-rich Arab states, there were forests there, it was swampland, but climate change made it such that it's now a desert. I mean, this is where the oil comes from. It's something that is happening and will always happen. And regarding the prisons, the people are being released, I'm beginning to wonder who exactly is being left in them. Because apart from the terrorists, which they'll probably release them soon, the people they're releasing, murderers, rapists and paedophiles, who is worse? People who tend to hurty tweet? I just don't understand it.
Well, we are living, I constantly talk about the upside down, Alice in Wonderland, smoke and mirrors world we are living in, and you are forced into that kind of, that postcode of confusion. Given the unfathomable nature of all of these decisions, and you've just highlighted the big ones. Thank you very much indeed for that, Mary. Really appreciate your call. We'll talk to John shortly. Meantime, 10 to 9, let's get some sports news.
90 minutes in 90 seconds from The Sun.
Josh Hall back with us, Arsenal reporter at The Sun. Thank you to him. Josh, morning to you. PSG have got the hump. How dare they? What's going on here?
They're playing in the Super Cup this evening against Aston Villa. They're a little bit unhappy that they weren't given the same amount of dressing room space as Aston Villa for the game, which has been played in Salzburg. That's now been resolved, but I think at first they were hoping that they were going to be given just as much space, and the UEFA have said, okay, we'll give you a bit more, we'll allow everything to be equal, and they'd be given a bit of extra room.
So why did they need it? Did they have less room to start with? Was that the argument?
Yeah, so just in general, because we've been playing in a neutral stadium, obviously when you're the home team, quite often stadiums now, the way they're designed, you'll get that the home team has a larger, more comfortable changing room, and that's just to give them a bit of an advantage. Kostas has been playing in a neutral stadium because it's technically a final in the Super Cup.
Yeah.
PSG were just given the smaller of the two changing rooms. They've obviously said we'd quite like to have the same amount of space, and they've been given a little bit of extra space.
Well, thank goodness for that. I can't imagine they would have pulled out, would they, if they hadn't been given the extra space?
I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked if they had.
Give us a prediction then. The mighty PSG taking on Villa tonight. 8 o'clock kickoff. What's that going to look like after 90 minutes?
Well, you would definitely have PSG down as favourites, given that they won the Champions League. Aston Villa obviously have lost a lot of good players this summer. Luca Digno's gone. Yuri Tielemans has gone to Manchester United. And, of course, Morgan Rogers in that £117 million transfer to Chelsea as well. So they're going to be light in terms of those star options. But you never know. They're a team that can dig it well. You know, Emery's a great manager in these sorts of games, and we'll see. But I would probably go on the side of caution and say that PSG will probably wind up winners.
Let's talk about Lewis Skelly. A move perhaps from North London to West London or to Manchester, maybe.
Yes, yeah, Miles Lewis-Skelly, obviously one of Arsenal's most exciting Hale End Academy graduates, but it looks as if he's been offered to Chelsea and Manchester United after they signed Bruno Guimaraes from Newcastle for £75 million. My colleague Samuel, who's our Manchester United reporter, suggests that Manchester United are considering a bid for him in the process, but they believe his price tag might be a little bit too high. As an Arsenal reporter, I would say I'd be sad to see him leave Arsenal. I think he's a very talented young player.
Where would he fit? I mean, as a Chelsea supporter, I could see. I mean, Chelsea do all manner of strange things when there's a sale on, and we've seen that, and so has their bank balance over the years. But there's a school of thought he would be a more comfortable fit at United. Is that backed up in any kind of fact?
Well, I think at Manchester United he could be used both at left back and in central midfield. That's one of his biggest strengths, is that he's this sort of versatile player. Whereas if he was to go to Chelsea, playing under Xabi Alonso, they're going to play a back five. I couldn't really see him playing as a left wing back, so he would only be able to be used as a midfield option. That just probably makes more sense under Carrick to be a more versatile option.
Yeah, I think you're bang on about that. Josh, thank you for your time as ever. Josh Hall, Arsenal reporter at The Sun. Thank you to him. Back to you. John is over there in the Dordogne in France. Morning, John.
Morning, Ian.
Morning.
You're always doing weird things, mate. You know that. Anyway.
Yeah, well, that's very true. Yeah, let's not go there again.
Let's get back to the matter in hand.
Yeah.
Is it 235 people they can get on these boats?
There was 240 on that big one.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's imagine that each one of these illegal invaders is going to cost this country 60k a year in all the costs, the hotels, food, blah blah blah. That comes out at 14 million quid.
Yeah.
Now, if you think that the average person probably pays about £5,000 a year in tax, maybe more. If we say it's £5,000, that's going to take all the tax from 2,820 people to pay for them people.
Yeah, we are talking. These are the kind of telephone numbers that we're talking about, and they're so big and so regular, John, that it's almost as if they don't even get discussed. I mean, yes, with the figure from yesterday, 25 million quid, but that's just one example of one part of one story.
Yeah, it's this social communist party called the Labour Party. They have got to be stopped. I don't know how we're going to do it. They've got to be stopped.
And on that point,
soon.
John, I get it. Thank you very much indeed for that. That's John in France. This in from Stan in Cheshire. How long before Burnham tells us we have to accept illegal immigrants into our homes? You see, that's where he misses the trick, isn't it? You know, Burnham, I will govern for all people, and, you know, hope in every heart and success in every postcode, or whatever the hell it was, an HMO in every postcode. Seems to be the way he's going on this one. He could have, in that one answer, he could have gone, look, I get it. This whole story is unacceptable. So as for the bigger picture, we're onto it. In the meantime, we need to do this with HMOs. If he'd said, something like that. It would have still been awful, but at least he would have had a tacit acknowledgement of the problem. And he didn't in that response. We'll play you the response again in the next hour. He didn't have anything of the sort. He just talked about, well, everybody should share the issue here. You know, opulent areas as well as the poorer areas. I mean, what is the man on, for goodness sake? Has he not got ears? 0344 499 1000.
Current affairs, international news, letting criminals off while sending... Oi! Oi! You shut up. I'm trying to record something.
Stand by for 3 powerhouse hours of breaking news, challenging views. I don't give a flying damn about international law. I think people will viscerally reject this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is therefore my honour to declare that the duly elected leader of the Labour Party is Andy Burnham.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much. I believe in all of you, and I am confident we can do it. Thank you very much. I have just come from Buckingham Palace, where I have accepted His Majesty the King's invitation to form a government. I know people at home are fed up with politics. I hear you, and I want to be honest with you. We have not been good enough, and we need to be better. We will be.
This man has no mandate whatsoever. He didn't stand on the 2024 general election manifesto. You cannot make the biggest change in British politics in 40 years without a mandate from the British people, and it will be only decent, right and proper to call a general election on that issue and to do it now.
Our 5th Prime Minister in 4 years. Blimey. And, well, look, we want him to succeed. But will this one be any different? Andy Burnham, the new head honcho, the speed this all happened, I know this is a well-trodden debate already, is actually breathtaking. 1 minute he was Mayor of Greater Manchester. What, a month and a bit ago he wasn't even an MP. The next he's holding keys to number 10 without the country ever really having a chance to scrutinise him in a prospective prime ministerial nothing at all. We really know very little.
I think Burnham has to walk a fine line. I think that's probably what's going on.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. 3 minutes after 9 o'clock. Welcome to Talk Breakfast. Collins in for Kyle for the remainder of this week. It is midsummer, of course. It's also Eclipse Day, something about suns and moons and zombies and the like. More on that shortly. Coming up, Andy Burnham has said that middle-class families should play their part by accepting asylum seeker accommodation near their homes. It's not an evacuee programme, Mr Burnham, for goodness sake. What does he mean, by the way, by middle classes? What does he mean by play your part? Why should anyone of any background be forced to comply with a policy born out of heady, chronic government ineptitude? More on that in a couple of moments. Despite all of this, and I can hardly believe this one, Labour are ahead in the polls. They've nicked the lead from Reform in the latest poll. No idea what's gone there, but once again provokes the rumours of an early election. What do you seriously think might happen if Andy Burnham goes to the country, as the phrase goes? And the heatwave is back. It clashes, as I mentioned, with the eclipse. Do we still have a heatwave, by the way, technically, if there's an eclipse? Surely for 2 minutes and 18 seconds. There is no heatwave. It's like being part of a nature documentary, but in real time. Apparently, Andy Burnham is actually holding, I'm not kidding you, a Cobra meeting today to talk about the weather. Oh, yes. Speaking of Andy Burnham, let's get a voice note from Sean. Morning, Sean.
Morning, Ian. Sean from Grimsby here. Now, this Andy Burnham plan about middle-class areas taking more immigrants, he did actually warn us, mate, a couple of weeks ago when he said growth in every postcode. Great show, mate.
Yeah, and don't believe Sean. Let's have a reminder.
Imagine good growth in every postcode and hope in every heart. Well, imagine no more. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, an HMO in every postcode. That's, as Sean said, what he means about growth. Isabel Oakeshott is Talk's international editor. I say this every time, Isabel. You know, we've both been around the block long enough doing this job and looking at politics. I mean, this stuff, the word unbelievable is sometimes overused. I can't really reach for another description. Well, there's many I could say but couldn't broadcast. I mean, just to hear Mr Burnham talking about this idea that everybody's got to play their part in the big HMO extravaganza. What is going on?
I thought it was an extraordinary thing to say, and I think he will come to bitterly regret it. You know, this is, as you said, it's not an evacuee programme. This isn't some kind of war effort. This isn't some kind of national thing that we've all signed up to. Virtually nobody has signed up to having this imposed on our communities. And of course, we don't all have to play our part. We've all said we don't want this. And for many people, the part they want to play is in doing whatever it takes for these people to be deported. It was so tone deaf. You know, it's a kind of thing you could imagine Starmer saying. And I feel that, is this a little window on what Burnham is going to be like? You know, yes, I know he's a better communicator, but if his ideas are roughly the same, if his mindset is roughly the same as Starmer, then this poll lead of his is going to dissipate really, really quickly. I think the idea of a kind of distribution of undocumented males, busloads of men who have broken into our country, into the nicest communities in the country, could well be the spark that lights a tinderbox. I mean, that absolutely crosses a line for many people. And I think a lot of, you know, he talked about, I don't know whether he said it, but middle class areas, whatever. There are not that many parts of Britain that still feel untouched by this mounting catastrophe. And if it starts spreading out through the shires politically and culturally and societally, that becomes a whole different ballgame. It's one thing when this awful situation is sort of condensed in town centres in places like Derby, which already have loads of socio-economic problems. If you start putting migrants in Cotswold villages, you've got a real problem on your hands.
Yeah, you have indeed. I actually think it's, you just mentioned Starmer there. I think it's worse than Starmer. It's only really now looking back on it. I look at Keir Starmer and his position on this, and it was largely, I think, a legal one because he was a lawyer and he was sort of obsessed with law. He only really viewed it through that particular prism. And so his all of his takes on it, and sort of him and Lord Hermer sitting there breaking bread of an evening, pausing their Sudoku to try and have a crack at what we do next, was all based on law. It was nothing about, you know, the social implications, the population explosion, the issues around social cohesion. None of that really. It was they were just obsessed with the sort of legal technicalities of it all. Whereas I think Burnham is actually more Gordon Brown, which we spoke about on Monday, Isabel, when we were talking about the Gillian Duffy moment. I think that's where his bread is buttered on this one. And, you know, again, he could have made a statement and said, look, regrettably, we've got to do this, but overarchingly, you know, this is a terrible situation. But he didn't say any of that stuff.
He didn't. I mean, it was so Starmer-esque in that way.
Yes.
And, you know, you do make a really interesting point about, does he see it through a different prism? But neither of the prisms are what most British voters are looking through. The legal one, we know what Starmer thought and his whole administration thought, and that's sort of baked in already to this Labour government. Now we're layering on top of it, apparently, someone who seems to think that this is some kind of moral duty. Every time you show this picture, just for anyone who's not watching on YouTube, whatever, of Andy Burnham standing next, staring at an empty dinghy. I mean, it's sort of so ridiculous as to be comical, isn't it?
We save that picture for when you come on, Isabel.
I know you do, but it's going to trigger me every time just because it is so ludicrous. What were they trying to achieve standing round this?
I know. Here's a Prime Minister. Here's a dinghy. Look, here's a Chief of Police pointing to the dinghy. Here's the Border Force person pointing to the dinghy. And here's Andy Burnham looking at the dinghy. What are we getting from this?
I mean, what I can tell you're not getting is this problem being solved? You know, for Labour ministers to do as they did yesterday, to keep on gaslighting us, telling us that their policies are working because they've nicked one or two people smugglers here or there. I can only say they haven't spent any time in the kind of heart of the problem. There isn't a shortage of people smugglers. The idea that, you know, you pick a few off and that makes the problem go away, as if there's a finite supply of people who are willing to make vast amounts of money or even good money as a foot soldier for the people smugglers is astonishingly naive. It just doesn't work like that. You might as well say the same about the global drug trafficking trade, you know, where we've got a few drug smugglers, you know, it
doesn't work. I think I've worked out what's actually happened with that footage, Isabel. Andy Burnham, of course, prior to that, had given this press conference flanked by the Whitecliffs of Dover in sort of best Vera Lynn mode, telling us how Labour had solved the problem. And he wanted to see some evidence of the problem being solved. So they showed him an empty dinghy and he said, look, there's no one in it. And I'm achieving what they set out to do. Look, here's a dinghy.
Yeah.
There's no one in it.
Yeah, just
trebles all round. I've solved it.
Yeah, just one problem. You know, within a few short days, there was a dinghy that was so gargantuan that I don't think it really qualifies as a dinghy. I mean, where I am on the Isle of Wight, there is this massive inflatable structure which is for kids to play on. It's got like towers and slides and stuff like that. That's the kind of size we're talking about. Are we going to now see those things floating across the channel? You know, the gigantic inflatable play parks? Because I don't know, ain't no anyone I've ever known seen a dinghy like that before. That looks purpose built to me for this. And where did it come from? How did it get down to the beach without the French police noticing? As we were saying yesterday, of course they noticed it. I mean,
maybe it's going to become an Alton Towers ride, you know, or have you done the Channel Crossing ride? You know,
exactly.
Done the Waltzer, and there's a big experience you can go on. You sit across a massive dinghy and replicate the journey.
Yeah, maybe, but it's not for the faint-hearted trying to actually get onto these things. And once you're on board, if the weather is like this, it's not too bad. Although on a dinghy with 230 people on, it gets pretty choppy out there. However nice the weather is, as you leave, it gets pretty choppy out there. You've got people being sick. You've got people needing a toilet. I mean, these are floating cesspools of human desperation. And also human optimism. People are heading for new lives in Britain, and we make it so attractive for them. And within 24 hours of their arrival, they are dispersed free to do whatever they want, really. Only constraint is they're not supposed to work, which we all know isn't listened to.
Let's just get a word on other domestic matters, perhaps in the world of politics and Westminster. By the way, before we get into that, let me just ask you a word on the Burnham bounce, Isabel. He's gone ahead in the polls. This isn't because he's nicked a load of Reform voters or Tory voters. It seems to be those sort of wavering, wobbly Greens and some Lib Dems that have finally decided to plant their flag into Burnham's camp when previously they were undecided. That seems to be what's happened here. But the reality is, based on that, if there was a general election tomorrow, based on that, Andy Burnham would continue to be the Prime Minister.
Well, good luck to our country if that happens. I don't think so. So, to what extent does this matter right now? It doesn't matter at all to the other parties unless Andy Burnham does decide to go to the country early, and I just don't believe he's going to do that. He was very clear, I think, on his first day, pretty much, when he said, people have had enough of politics. They've had too much politics recently. And by that, he meant we've had too many elections, too many changes of prime minister, too much political upheaval. And I felt that came from the heart with him. I do know how he talks, and I do know a bit of the mindset. And I do think he meant that at the time. Now, of course, politicians always reserve the right to change their minds when the facts change. So we can't rule out that he doesn't suddenly go, well, now I've been in office for a few months, I can see that the scale of the mission, the scale of what we've got to achieve is so enormous that I really need everyone behind me on this. You could sort of see him doing that. But I would put the chances of that still at maybe 5%, 5 to 10% at most. I think he's going to go long. I think there's 3 years to go. And, in that regard, all to play for both Nigel Farage and Kemi Badenoch.
Let's talk about reform. This tweet from Rupert Lowe saying that any deal with reform is off, although he's not saying it's his doing. He's suggesting that Reform UK have said that a pact with Restore Britain is off. This is their decision, says Mr Lowe. I'm not getting into the personality differences at all. I can't be bothered. If Reform want to discuss policy, not personality, then they know where to find me. What are you making of this?
I mean, aren't we all bored of Rupert Lowe banging on about this? I mean, he's managed to get himself, 10 days of media coverage by talking about a deal that was never going to happen. He knew it was never going to happen. He and Nigel can't stand each other. They can't possibly work together. Rupert Lowe's ego simply can't accommodate someone as strong leadership-wise as Nigel. It's just never going to work. So this is all just theatrics from Rupert Lowe, designed to get just try to eke out another day of coverage from it all. There wasn't ever going to be a deal. There doesn't need to be a deal. Why on earth would there be a deal 3 years out from a general election when, in any case, Reform doesn't believe that Restore will get any seats?
It's interesting that Restore, we constantly hear this idea that if the two parties got together, then that would be almost the election sealed, because collectively there will be enough people on the centre-right to address the issue on the centre or hard left. What's your take on that?
Again, I just think this is pointless sort of making these calculations now. You could say the same about Reform and the Tories, and we have this discussion endlessly, round and round and time again, and for the same reason, well, for 101 reasons, there won't be any kind of agreement pre-election between Reform and the Tories. Nigel Farage will not want to work with Kemi Badenoch any more than she will want to work with him. And Reform will go on reminding people, as if they need any reminder, because they see it whenever they look around them, about the Tories' totally unforgivable betrayal of our country over a period of 14 years. I just can't listen to them. 2 years since we booted them out, I cannot listen to Tory shadow ministers telling us what they're going to do to repair the damage that they themselves created. They have no right whatsoever to be re-elected.
Well, they all seem to say, and I put this to Chris Philp a little earlier, they always seem to say, yeah, but I wasn't thinking that. The government might have been thinking that, but I wasn't thinking that. I tried to flag it, and, we've heard this time and time again. Does that wash with you at any level?
Yeah, if they resigned in a blaze of publicity saying why they were putting the country first and their principles first, if they resigned because they couldn't push through the policies that they believed in, then I might respect that. But most of these people were nobodies anyway.
Yeah.
I don't remember any of them taking a stand on anything.
That's fair. Final point, Zia Youssef. Is he safe in Reform?
I did wonder when you were going to get
do you know, I only mentioned it because Dan Hodges raised it earlier. Now, Dan, of course, I think we can put him down as an undecided when it comes to whether he's going to vote for Reform. But it came up because he was kind of taking Nigel's side, really, on this, in that Nigel had said, look, Zia said something he shouldn't have said, or I'll have a word with him. And this was about John Healey, the former Conservative Defence Secretary.
No, not John Healey, Ben Wallace.
Sorry, Ben Wallace, apologies. Yeah, John Healey's now the Chancellor. Have I got that right? I think so. We have so many politicians back and forth at the moment. Ben Wallace. Mostly a fairly respected chap. I think Zia Youssef had called him a traitor in a tweet. The tweet is still up. What do we do with that story? Is it a non-story? Is it just a stupid thing? Is there anything more serious underlying this?
Zia is just so passionate about correcting the disastrous legacies of the Tories. That is why he gets wound up, because if he is elected Home Secretary, he has got a most enormous challenge to undo the damage that the Tories caused. So I completely understand why sometimes he just says it as he's really thinking it. Now, I actually know Ben Wallace, probably one of the politicians I've known for the longest, because he used to be, people probably don't know this, but at one point he was a member of the Scottish Parliament. We're talking about 25 years ago. And he and I was a reporter in Holyrood. So I've known him since then. He's a really solid, decent guy. He's certainly not a moron, and he's certainly not a traitor. Those are very, very strong words to use for someone like Ben Wallace. But I understand why Zia gets fired up, because I get fired up. We all get fired up, and I've got different Tories that I might use those words about. I mean, I could come up with a list of them that I think are morons, and it would be a pretty strong list.
I've got about 110 in my list.
And I would say that collectively, they were treacherous. They were. So
but is he a loose cannon, though, Isabel? I'm not trying to prompt a bigger argument or for a line on this. It's not that. I'm just intrigued that Nigel said, I'll have a word with him, and the tweet is still up. And that sort of, many people will read that. Opposition politicians who, it takes nothing to latch on to something, will say, look, Nigel Farage has said, I'll have a word. The tweet is still up, so therefore he's defying the leadership.
Well, Reform isn't like other parties. It's a party that prizes personality and flair and being a bit different, and actually sometimes using stronger words than the safety first politicians with their pre-scripted little lines to take, things that have been distributed by the press office and don't dare go off script at all. That isn't how Reform is. People are fed up of that kind of politics. They want to see people who are energised, people who are truly, truly wound up about the state of our country and will take political risks to fix it. And I think that's what you've got in Zia. Nigel recognises that Zia is a rare talent. He is incredible on the media. He's an amazing communicator. And over the years, I've been lucky enough to work with some some extraordinarily talented people. And what you find is the more talented someone is, the more they tend to have downsides, as it were.
Yeah, that's fair.
And you've just got to accommodate that sometimes when people are exceptional.
Good work. Isabel, great to have you on as ever. Thank you. We'll speak, I'm sure, tomorrow. Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor, with us on the programme. Thank you to her. Over to you. Robert's in Hertfordshire. Robert, what have you got for us? Morning.
Yeah, good morning. Regarding Andy Burnham's suggestion that the migrants should be moved into more middle-class areas, it's not funny, but there's a certain irony, and the word karma comes. These trendies who were saying years ago and months ago that, yeah, there's nothing wrong with the migrants, until you said, would you have one, in your own house? But now, what's happening is it's karma, and I think this can only make reform stronger. Because the people who was opposing it...
Well, I agree with you. And then I look at that opinion poll, and this is where my concern is, Robert. You look at the opinion poll and you say, well, OK, look, he's a bit ahead. He's not loads ahead, and it wouldn't be some decisive Labour landslide based on that. I know it's only one extra opinion poll. There seems to be a slight a bit of a trend, not entirely a trend, a bit of a trend of Burnham doing OK. Now, that could be easily explained by the fact that he's not Keir Starmer. He's a bit more accessible. He's quite a good communicator. I'm sure he doesn't, in any other day of the week, he'll have a pint with you and a bag of pork scratching. So he's got all of that going on. We know all that. It's getting a bit boring now, and he makes TikTok videos that are very unamusing. That's his thing. However, if there are more Burnham supporters based on that poll than there are Reform or Conservative supporters, is he home and dry?
Well, I don't think so. I to be honest with you, he's being played out. He was parachuted in. He didn't have a mandate. And let me tell you something. I'm fed up of being proved right. I've said it on your show a couple of times. What's wrong with this country? You imagine it as a triangle. At the very top of the triangle is a Fabian Society. I guarantee you, it's the Fabian Society at the top of the triangle.
Well, that's just the, it's like equity, isn't it? I think I said to you before, it's like equity for actors. If you're a Labour supporter, you're a Fabian. I mean, it's not a secret.
No, I think it's the devil in disguise. I really do think.
But that would be there's nothing weird about that. If you're a lefty, that would be your thinking. I mean, that's what you'd go with. If you are, I can't remember the Conservative Society that some Tories are members of, but there's it just goes with the territory, doesn't it? You become a Fabian because you believe in those values.
No, they're Marxists in sheep's clothing, and I don't care what you say. And I will be proved right. And this is what's happening now is when you think about it and look back a year, the country is completely falling apart now.
There's something in that.
Falling apart.
On that point, Robert, it's a grim point, but it resonates. It absolutely does. Robert, thank you, in Hertfordshire. 0344 499 1000, 9:25. This is Talk.
Sex basis on biological sex. Yeah. And therefore you cannot have people going into a women's space, which is for women only, who is not a biological woman.
I was wondering whether that interview was conducted on April Fool's Day, because I think it was a new low in the sort of...
A new low for low?
A new low for low, because, I mean, just the absurdity of not being able to ask a very basic question about the monarch of our country.
The UK on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. Yeah, good morning. 28 minutes after 9 o'clock. Brett says, how about a large HMO in number 9 Downing Street? Well, that might be a good experiment. Just to warm things up a bit for the Prime Minister. Derek says, Navy on the boats, Air Force on the helicopters, armies on the beaches. Don't let them into our waters, just stop them. Ban French fishing in our waters. No money paid to France. Sorted. Every time I raise that, I've raised that a ton of times with politicians, it's always, well, you can't do that. What is the worst that would happen if you did that? OK, you'd have a diplomatic incident with France. This is how I would see it playing out. It would lead the news for days as a diplomatic incident. Mr. Macron, I mean, he's not got long left anyway, has he? I mean, politically speaking, I'm sure he's in fine health. Just to clarify, news hounds. He would get the hump, he'd give a press conference, and then our lot would give a press conference. And there'd be a row, and then there'd be a discussion, they'd reach an agreement. Now, the agreement would probably, perhaps, end up with a bit more of a robust response than we currently have with the French, right? That's what I think would happen. So I think you would get results out of playing tough, but who the heck knows? Let's get a voice note on all matters migrant-related. This is from Helen. Morning, Helen.
Morning, Ian. This is Helen from Lincolnshire. If I was Andy Burnham right now, and Keir Starmer before him, I'd be seeing these images of these boats and I would be furious. I would be furious that I was being made a laughingstock of on the international stage. And even if the will of the British people wasn't the thing to spur me on, this thing would be. I would be showing my authority now, and I would be putting my foot down with the French, and I would say, this is the last time you're going to make an idiot of me in front of the world, and I would be getting something done about it.
And the interesting thing about that, and you know, this would apply even to Andy Burnham, if he stopped the boats, he would definitely win an election tomorrow. Because even though he's, you know, not necessarily your cup of tea, there might be somebody who goes, you know what, 10 years nobody stopped the boats. You know who's only gone and stopped it? Andy Burnham. Yeah. We've got loads of love in every postcode now. All for the love of Andy. Lenny says, as you know, I'm in my twilight years, so with my experience of life, I have never been more concerned about the future of our country. With an open book lies, with an open book, lies are a daily occurrence and no accountability. Enjoying your programme, Common Sense on Display. Lenny, it's always lovely to hear from you. Thank you very much indeed for that. Let's get a word with Annunziata Rees-Mogg, Head of Comms at Popular Conservatism. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
I was right. We spoke to Nigel Evans, as in former Deputy Speaker, a little earlier. And when he came onto the screen, he had his Eclipse glasses on. Ready to
I'm very impressed. Did he queue for 3 hours?
Well, apparently, and I don't want to cast any kind of aspersions, but he's got a job lot of these things because a mate of his, apparently, this is the Evans defence, months ago, knew this was coming up, and you know, because we get a lot of notice on this, so he went and bought a bag load of glasses, but the rest of us can't get them for love nor money.
No, and I'm actually on holiday in Spain with the full eclipse going right over the top, and I don't have any glasses, so we'll be doing cutouts and pinholes and colanders and God knows what to try.
I keep hearing about the colander thing, but you do that with paper, don't you? So you can get an image of what the sun and the moon are doing.
Yeah. I haven't quite worked out how it works, but we'll give it a shot.
Yeah, absolutely give it a shot. It's I mean, we all, every now and again, glance at the sun. I'm not advising anybody to do this, but once in a while, you might be driving in the car and the sun gets you, and, once you'll have a look at you. It's quite extraordinary, isn't it, nature? You genuinely cannot, there's very few things if you wanted to put your hand in a burning flame, you could do, but you can't look at the sun. You've got 1 second and then you're away.
Yeah. No, you can't make yourself. I was actually driving in Lincolnshire recently, and the sun was reflecting off some solar panels. And it was effectively like having the sun in the middle of the road.
Wow, that's a good point.
Unbelievable. You were blinded completely.
Yeah, I think we need to get on to Lincolnshire County Council on this one. Get your solar panels sorted out. Or supply sunglasses at the border, maybe. That could be the answer. There's a couple of stories knocking around that are quite interesting. Andy Burnham, no less, has decided that he's got another way to ease the burden of HMOs, because HMOs, of course, are proliferating across the country. Homes of multiple occupancy, mostly for those that were originally came over the channel, were put into hotels. They made this very big pledge. We're going to close the hotels, as if that was solving the problem. No, we're just going to move people elsewhere, mostly in your street. He now wants to extend it to not just certain areas, but everybody should share the love, apparently. Let's have a listen to the Prime Minister.
We cannot have a situation where it's only the poorest communities in the country that receive all of the dispersal of refugees and asylum seekers. I do believe all parts of the country need to work to play their part. It's a challenging issue. We're working at it. We understand people's concerns, and I will look into the issues raised by the good people of Piddington.
This, to me, Annunziata, is utterly fascinating. He's talking about this as if it's a sort of a wartime evacuation programme. Everyone's got to play their part, put your flags out, everybody comes and joins. It's completely missed the point. He talks about Piddington, which is this very small village that has about 500 people that live in it, and soon to have an extra 1,200 people living in it. By any measure, you could be the maddest Marxist. You would surely have to say that doesn't work. But Mr. Burnham, he's fine with it. He just wants to spread it out a bit.
Absolutely. And I think it highlights how economically illiterate this government is already showing itself to be. That the reason this hasn't already been done is not because Keir Starmer loved the people of Knightsbridge or Chelsea. It's because it's phenomenally expensive in Knightsbridge and Chelsea. And no one could afford to house anyone there unless you happen to be a Russian oligarch or a multi-billionaire. It's completely mad. What he has to do, there is no other way about it, is to scrap the incentives to come here and stop the boats. As it is, we've got Burnham's boats coming. They're bigger than ever, 40% bigger than just a month ago, with 230 people on it. The record in July, the biggest boat ever, was 165. That just shows you the confidence that the people smugglers have got, that they know that they can get huge numbers over, make an absolute fortune. I think it was The Sun that went off and tried to buy some of these boats, and you can pick them up for 1,400 quid. 49 feet boats that would take 200 plus people. If you're charging thousands per person, the profit is £500,000 on a £1,400 boat. Well, you've got a bit of fuel, but that's about it.
I mean, it's everything about this story is unfathomable. The entire thing, and if it was in any other world, we'd assume it was kind of just satire, a dark satire of people coming on onto the channel on big boats. If you were trying to have this comment, imagine going to a pub in 1983 or something, and explaining to a group of people in there, guess what's happening on the channel? I mean, there'd be mayhem. People would, what, really? No way, I don't believe you. It would be a scurrilous rumour.
Absolutely. I mean, we only have to go back to 2016 for the absolute condemnation Nigel Farage got for using a photograph very similar to these ones you're showing of the big boats crossing the channel. But he showed one of people crossing to Turkey and from Turkey to Greece. And he got absolutely slammed when he said they will be coming to the UK. He was absolutely right. and successive governments have done absolutely nothing to stop it.
But here's the real rub, because according to opinion polls, Andy Burnham would win an election if there was one tomorrow. So is it just people like us that have the hump about this and get fired up and animated? Are there more people? It's constantly my question on this to anybody, frankly. Are there just more people on the left, as it were, than there are on the other side? Is that what's happening here?
No, I mean, I think the Tories have fessed up that they totally failed to get a grip on this issue. But it is the biggest issue facing most people, and the more communities that these so-called asylum seekers are put into, the more people will be riled up about it. But if you look at the polls, Labour, Burnham's bounce is 24%. It's way off getting any kind of majority. It would mean a rainbow coalition of the left with Greens and Lib Dems and probably the SNP all working together to undermine the country and our security. And the right's really got to get a grip on this. The Tories are now being quite strong on the boat issue, leaving the ECHR, having returns. Rwanda got scrapped, which would have been a huge deterrent and was actually a good policy. But they've got to convince the British people, both Reform and the Conservatives, that they're trustworthy and worth voting for. And I think both of late have not done a brilliant job of that. Conservatives are picking up, Reform's having a bit of a blip, but the right are going to have to talk to each other. They're going to have to find ground on which they agree to make sure there is a mandate after the next election where they can come together and actually tackle the issues that matter so much to all of us.
Indeed. Annunziata, thank you. Good to see you again. Enjoy your day. Enjoy the eclipse over there, Spanish style. Annunziata Rees-Mogg, Head of Comms at Popular Conservatives. And back with more from you in a couple of moments. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. It's 20 to 10. Now, What about this for a story? TV presenter and animal rights campaigner Annika Svenska says she was left shaking after 2 police officers turned up at her home over a video that she posted criticising animal testing facilities at MBR Acres. The company which breeds beagles for use in experimentation accused her of making false allegations about its disposal of dead animals. I didn't even think this could be a police matter, but apparently it was. Annika joins us now. Good morning to you.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Nice to have you with us. We get a lot of stories, don't we, of the police knocking on someone's door because of something they wrote on Twitter. The last time I looked, you haven't written anything about immigration or anything connected to any other sort of controversial matter. But the police did want to have a word with you about something else, and I just alluded to it there. What the heck is going on? What happened?
Yeah, I was deeply shocked. I had a knock at my door and I went to the gate. I saw 2 police people and I was just like, what on earth are they here for? And they told me that they'd had a complaint by MBR Acres in Huntingdon that I'd been publishing false information online. My reel had been misleading and contained false information, as they said. But every single reel that I make, because I'm a wildlife presenter, I research deeply, and I'd been given a Stericycle consignment note, which is basically a note from a whistleblower that drove the bodies of dead beagles away for incineration to they gave it to Camp Beagle, and in it basically said there was approximately 224 kilograms of hazarded animal anatomical waste, and I quoted this word for word in my reel. There was the picture of the Stericycle receipts, and somehow the police had just listened to them when they said, oh, this is false information. They didn't even research it. They just came straight over, knocked on my door and said, oh, this is false information. Would you like to sign this disposal note and do an online course in thinking?
What?
And I just, a thinking online course. It was almost like, I felt like it was a brainwashing course that they were offering.
Let's just roll back a bit, Annika. Regardless of what you've read, what's it got to do with the police? I mean, if anything, it would be an issue between you and the company, right? And if they felt that you had defamed them in some way, they would take appropriate action. If they felt you owed them a simple apology, they would have asked for it. At what point do you call the police and say, someone's written something about us, and then the police act on it?
No, I think everything's going wrong. Every single time I open the internet these days, I feel like the police are arresting the wrong people. And I think they're getting involved in areas they shouldn't be getting involved on. I mean, like, I don't do anything wrong. I'm a law-abiding citizen.
It's things like that. If you'd said somebody had nicked your car, I guarantee 2 coppers wouldn't have shown up at your house.
No, and also I had a stalker a couple of years ago, which he was sending me incredibly threatening emails. And I reported this down the station to the police, and they said, well, we can't go around and see him until you report it 3 times in 6 months. So the police did nothing about this dangerous stalker, yet somehow one little report about me to Cambridgeshire Police caused a visit to my house. And I was shocked and shaken because I hadn't done anything wrong. And I think more accurately, I was angry because, you know, we have a right to free speech. I've been involved with the Free Speech Union over this, and they've been incredible. And I think the information I'd like to get out to the public is if they get a police visit over something similar, over an opinion to do with animal welfare or whatever their opinion is, and they offer you this form and to go online and do this course, do not do it. Go to the Free Speech Union and consult a lawyer immediately, because there's something very weird going on right now. It just feels like a suppression of free speech. I mean, MBR Acres, they breed 2,000 beagle puppies every year, and they have dead beagles going to be incinerated. So why are there so many dead beagles? Why are there so many dead bodies? This is for the public to know about. So I'm doing it in the public interest. I believe people have a right to know what's going on with this company. And it feels like I've just totally been silenced over this, but I haven't, because I fought back by putting it into the media and coming onto stations like yours to talk about it, because I think this is a serious issue.
Well, MBR Acres accuse you of spreading false allegations.
It's not false because, of course, we've got that Stericycle receipt, which was already in the public domain for a few weeks before I even did a reel on it. So several other platforms had it. It'd been spoken about on other websites. And I must have taken, I'd say, about 2 to 3 weeks to even act on that note. And then I was like, oh, I really need to do something on that note because it's so important. This is something that I think the public needs to know about. And it's a whistleblower. And, you know, if it was to go to court, I'm sure he could even be called as a witness.
Well, I'd like to think if it went to court, it was thrown straight out of court on the basis of this. The offence you, I suppose, are meant to have committed is under the Online Safety Act. I mean, what's that?
And it's ridiculous.
Whose safety was compromised in this?
Yeah, I mean, this is a massive company that tests on animals and breeds animals. And do you know what they even do? They have a Home Office license to terminally bleed 250 dogs to death over 5 years. And I believe that the public have a right to know about it. They can access all of this information under the Freedom of Speech Act 2000. They can literally just write to the Home Office and say, send me that license on terminal bleeding at MBR Acres, and they can read about it. We are a nation of dog lovers. We all have a dog in our house. People are horrified to know this is going on. And when someone like me talks up, and I believe they wanted to silence me because all of my videos and reels go to the top of Google. When I do something, I do it professionally. You know, I have an autocue, I research it, the facts are correct, I have all the information on screen. And that is actually quite threatening compared to somebody that says they've got 100 followers on Instagram, nobody's actually watching their stuff.
What is the... So what is the lie you're meant to have told? Because I would have thought, look, you know, people have their own opinions on the use of animals in experimentation. I would have thought a laboratory that breeds animals specifically for that purpose and then disposes of those animals, that I would have thought was a matter of just basic fact. Did you meant to have exaggerated the amount of animals? I mean, what was the offence?
I tell you what they probably thought is the Stericycle whistleblower said that he had been going to MBR Acres approximately twice a month. And this was information that he had divulged to Camp Beagle, which is the permanent protest group that sit outside of MBR Acres. So the actual reel was suggesting, you know, if he was to be going every 2 weeks, it could end up being 1/2 ton of beagles a month. But that is dependent on the size of the beagles, you know, the weight of the beagles, what bits of body. I mean, it's a horrible thing.
I mean, is that really an argument they want to have? I mean, you'd thought if anyone didn't want to have that argument, it would be them.
Yeah, I think
because they might end up having to say, no, we don't dispose of 1 ton of beagles. It's only 3/4 of a ton of beagles. You know, is that the territory we're in?
Yeah, they'd have to then divulge the actual true facts, wouldn't they, to actually sort of fight their own corner. And to be quite honest, by doing this, they've just put publicity back onto them, which I think is completely bonkers.
Where does it go now? Because you're meant to do an online thinking test.
I'm not doing it. I had an incredible lawyer that literally she just read it and laughed when she saw what the police had given to me. And she said, do not sign this. She says it will be searchable somewhere, you know, on your record somewhere when people are looking into you. So she said, and as she read it, she said, no, we're just going to write a nice polite letter back to Cambridgeshire Police. We're going to attach all the information which proves that you knew exactly what you were saying when you did the reel. And she sent it off, and within 15 minutes, Cambridgeshire Police just replied and said, oh, we've dropped all the charges. So I haven't got a clue why they dropped it, whether they realised I had evidence and they just hadn't checked it out, or whether they just thought I was going to be a pushover and sign this form.
I would imagine, just looking at the video as well, of the officers turning up who have to literally read off a piece of paper rather than, you know, this is not an instinctive part of policing where the average serving officer knows what the heck this is meant to be about. So they've been sent down there by, you know, Sarge or whoever else at the station who's gone, can you go and check out this? We've got this TV presenter who's banging on about beagles. Can you go down there and just do the online safety thing and offer the thinking test? I can't imagine. I mean, you really did draw the short straw at the police station that day, if that's what you were tasked with doing. I think most people went into that job to stop bad people and criminals.
Yeah, police should be on the streets. I mean, there's so much crime. I live near Crowborough, and there's a lot going on the streets over there right now. And everyone's complaining that the police are just, you know, they're arresting the wrong people. I mean, to actually have officers come around my house, it's an incredible waste of time and taxpayers' money.
Yeah.
I'm annoyed by it. If anything, it makes me
you should be annoyed by it. Do we know what happens in a thinking test, just out of interest? Was there any part of you that thought I'd quite like to explore what I should be thinking?
I should have actually clicked on the link and put the password in order to read it, because I would have been curious about it.
But that might have, you might have incriminated yourself by doing that, because they might have been, they would have the digital footprint of where you've been. So when they come next time and take your entire computer away and all your devices, they'd be able to go, look, she's guilty. She's already done the online thinking course.
Yeah, I know. It's absolutely nuts. I just suggest if anybody else gets a similar visit, just to consult a lawyer and the Free Speaking Union, because there's something severely wrong going on here.
Very wrong indeed. Let's keep in touch and see where this goes. Anika, thank you for your time this morning. Great to have you on with us. Anika Svenska, TV presenter, who got a knock from the old Bill because she posted something about an animal testing facility. They didn't like what she'd said, and I'll repeat what they say as their defence on this. They say and accuse her of spreading false allegations. It seems to be down to a rather slightly unsavoury matter about the overall weight of dead beagles. I think she said they get rid of X amount per month. They dispute this. I don't know. Look, it's not a colourful area, is it? You know, animal experimentation will always create some debate. Most of us, to a degree, understand it. There have, over the years, been leaps and bounds progress. I think Joanna Lumley kicked off yonks ago about makeup being tested on animals. I think they put a ban to that, more or less. But yeah, I mean, in the name of the human journey, animals are used. Every animal you can think of at some point is used in some shape or form. And she feels strongly about it, and she wrote a piece about it, and then the police turned up and said, no, you can't say that. No. Breaking the Online Safety Act. You need to go online and take part in a thinking skills course. I mean, seriously, even the name of it. Kim Jong-un couldn't have come up with that, for God's sake.
Good morning to you. This is Tour the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Just breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. Not just that the police have arrived at the Sandringham estate where Prince Andrew, as was now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, is currently living since being thrown out of the Windsor estate. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's an extraordinary revelation. And certainly what's been contained in the Epstein files as released in the last few weeks. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, morning. Julia with us in just a second. Let's get a voice note on that. What is it, a row, Zia Youssef, Nigel Farage? Something went on. Let's hear from Sarah. Morning, Sarah.
Good morning, Ian. It's Sarah from Croydon. Just picking up on what Isabel Oakeshott was saying about the spat between Zia Youssef and Nigel Farage. I think to most members, most supporters, they probably don't mind. They like the fact that Zia is quite outspoken. But to the wider public, I don't think it's very good optics. I think it does look like a party divided. And I just rather, I'm a member, I'm a supporter, I'd rather it didn't happen. I don't want to see it. Do it behind closed doors. And supporters following the very sad death of Anne Widdecombe. So he can't now come out and use this type of language against other political figures. It doesn't wash.
I think that last point is a fair point about the tonal nature of politics. And one in from Andy, who says, Andy's in Bridgend, the Burnham bounce, Ian, give it a few weeks, it'll be the Burnham burnout. Or will it? Julia Hartley-Brewer will put it all to rights in a moment.
I'm pretty sure it will be.
Yes.
Honestly, I mean, the early release scheme, the boats, everything is just exposing Andy Burnham as someone who just doesn't think.
And an
things,
HMO in every postcode.
Well, yeah, it's like, oh, yeah, work really, really hard, buy, save up, buy a home in a nice area, and then you can go and get asylum seekers nearby. I live in a very nice area, very leafy street. We've got an asylum seeker hotel at the top of our road. So,
I did make that
they're
point.
already there.
I was about to say, that's not entirely new, but the mere idea that he wants to spread the joy is quite curious.
But it's the idea we need to play our part, It's like...
Well, I said earlier, like we're talking about evacuees from the war,